What's up, y'all? Welcome to episode 9 of Punt Off. We have obviously James in his birthday today, so happy birthday, my man. Here for episode 9 of
Thank you.
Punt Off. And a lot has happened in the NFL. You would think that certain teams are sponsored by Oprah because they're just handing out dubs to the opponent every single week, just like Nathan Peterman did in his opening NFL game. James, obviously, Rays got to win this past week. It's your birthday. How you doing, man? And what's up?
I'm good. I'm starting to get, and I know I say this all the time. I'm starting to get my voice back, get in the groove of things again, of doing shows, multiple shows, and getting back to work. Birthday was cool, hanging out with the family up here in uh, Southern California. Uh, had a good dinner. Hung out at Angel Stadium. It was the 20th anniversary of my baseball team winning their championship. I know 20 years have gone by so fast, and uh, they haven't won one since. They haven't been close in 8 years. Um, I need the Raiders to, like you mentioned, the Raiders. I need them to win a Super Bowl sometime soon, or I will just stop watching sports. Something. I need something to get going, man. But hey, I'm happy to be here. I know we had on my end some audio trouble,
Dude,
but I think now we're good.
that was the
This,
craziest technical issues we've ever had. So, folks, people that are watching, it's late at night, so I doubt people will be watching. But yeah, it's always good and fun. Literally, James, you could hear me, and I couldn't hear you.
but
Uh,
you hear me? You
that was like 15, 20 minutes of that. And I feel like that's what Brady and the Bucks are doing right now. Wait, are you doing this? Wait, I'm sorry, I don't understand. So Tom Brady, and I'm gonna put this in the new edited trailer. Tom Brady is like my work clothes on a Monday morning, washed. But James, obviously,
Ah,
Thursday night football, or this past week happened. It was crazy. It was insane. Today is Friday. Thursday night football, Ravens and the Bucks. I'll give you the stats. We'll go from there. Then you can give me your thoughts. Obviously, myself, I picked the Ravens to win, and obviously the trailer we didn't play because it's definitely aged more poorly than Tom Brady did this season. Lamar Jackson, 27 of 38, 238, 2 touchdowns, and a QBR of 104.9, despite James J.K. Dobbins being out for the next couple of weeks. Gus Edwards has averaged 5.9 yards per carry with the longest run of tonight, 22 yards. And also the craziest news, Mark Andrews missed most of the game with only 3 receptions of 33 yards. Well, obviously Tom Brady and the Bucks are trading more than my shorts after a run to Taco Bell. Tom Brady tonight, 26 to 44, 325 in a pick. James, this game obviously was more big for Baltimore and Lamar Jackson in terms of he needs to be like Cardi B, making those money moves. While Tom Brady says, I want to play on 45. Well, Tom Brady's 45, James. What are your thoughts on this game? Again, Gus Edwards, 5.9 yards a carry. Lamar Jackson ran the ball, but he's also been more accurate, had a better QBR already. What are your thoughts on this game, and how does this really shape the next couple of weeks in the National Football League?
it shows that Baltimore still has a chance. Unfortunately, with your Bengals, Jamar Chase will be out 4 to 6 weeks. It makes that
Boo.
AFC, it makes that AFC North a little bit a little bit more up for grabs. We all know the Browns and Steelers are going to be out of it. We just know it. It's a two-team race with Cincinnati and Baltimore. It also shows Lamar Jackson can get the job done in all sorts of ways. His legs. I had a family member yelling like, "Man, he keeps getting out of every single rush to either run for something, throw the ball away, throw for a miracle pass. He has that ability just to do it with his legs and his arm, which, nobody gives him credit for his arm, but his legs. Uh, but they won 27-22. They were able to score enough points. They showed that they could score any way that they can, even without Andrews and Dobbins. Edwards had a good game. Lamar Jackson, lately, he hasn't been throwing for over 180 yards. It's been less than that. So it's good to see his stats up like this. On the losing side, Tom Brady definitely showing father time throws. It just seems like a lot of the highlights I saw, he was throwing so low to his receivers. Um, there was one that could have been picked, another one that could have been picked, but it just shows like something's really not what he used to be. Uh, Mac Evans had an okay game. Julio Jones, I saw, had a important catch. I saw they tried to come back. They tried for two to make it a 3-point game. They couldn't. Tried an onside kick at the end, and the Ravens were all on it. This was a good game to show Lamar, could still do it, and he can do it in many ways. And it's the total opposite for the Buccaneers now. They are in shambles. Right now, they are 3-5. That's good for third place in that South.
Mm-hmm.
And if New Orleans wins, they're tied for third. Atlanta and Carolina are playing for first place, and they both will be. Oh no, if Carolina wins, they'll be 3-5. Atlanta will be tied with them if Carolina wins. But that just shows you how bad, of course, the South is. It also shows you how things have really turned with the Buccaneers. Uh, I don't know if you've seen it or you mentioned it before.
Mm-hmm.
I've never liked Todd Bowles as a head coach. Granted, he didn't have a lot of talent with Geno Smith and those Jets teams he coached,
Mm-hmm.
but he never seems to show any emotion whatsoever. Like there's no heart, there's no fight. I don't. There's a lot. It seems like missing in Tampa right now, and it's not just Gronk that could save him. It's way more because they do have the weapons. White ran well today. Fournette didn't really do much, but they're just not getting production out of really anyone. Brady can get the numbers. He threw, like you said, for 325 yards, but that's more going for the deep balls. But on the short throws, he's not really hitting anyone. And that's really disheartening to see.
Honestly, man, here's the thing. One thing I will never understand. Does Tom Brady work at Six Flags? No. So why do we keep giving him a pass? There should be no excuses, no reason. At some point, Tom, this is where I think the Miami situation is so more important. Like Mark Floyd is talking about, this story was not talked about enough. Why the Miami Dolphins owner was suspended for the first 6 to 7 weeks because of this. Because you look at the situation now, Todd Bowles. If Todd Bowles misses the playoffs with Tom Brady, with Fournette, with Evans, who Evans says this last 2 weeks, I don't know what's going on, man. That you can say that Tom Brady threw a pass a little bit last week. I can say it was definitely a little bit overthrown. I will say that. But like I said, Tom Bowles has no emotion. This is more internal than external. This goes back to the offseason, James, where I said Tom Brady was allowed 2 weeks off from training camp. That to me is a bigger deal than people were making it at the time. There's something outside of football was going on. When something happens outside of football with a player, it's going to affect their on the field play. Not only that, you allow Tom Brady Wednesdays off every single week. I don't know if that's still into effect, but at least through the first couple of weeks, it clearly was. Tom Brady wanted to play until he's 45. I can say it's easy to say this now. Brady should retired after that 7th Super Bowl ring. I think people saw the writing on the wall at that little face painting that people see, like, oh my goodness, like the Bucks are not a good team. Todd Bowles, clearly, if you cannot win with Tom Brady, this was going to be a make it or break it season for Todd Bowles as a future head coach anywhere. After this is basically this season for Todd Bowles was a tryout season to be a potential head coach somewhere else. But if you can't win with these weapons, you're not going to have teams, let's say, like Washington, like a couple other teams in the NFL, maybe the Chargers if they missed a play. There's two teams right there that if you can't win with these guys, you can't win with Justin Herbert, who has an amazing arm. The situation here now, Fournette. We say this again, Shannon knows this, and I don't watch Undisputed a lot, but he knows this. Habits from college translate to the NFL. When Leonard Fournette was in the Heisman Trophy winning race in 2014 with I believe it was 2014 with Marcus Mariota. I remember because the buzzer kept talking about this before they disappeared. Is that Fournette was in the Heisman Trophy. Fournette for the Heisman. For the Heisman. Give that back to Reggie Bush. Then he said towards the last couple of weeks, stats started to dip. He wasn't playing as well. And that's what we're seeing with Fournette. I believe he's a phenomenal player, but he's not that guy to put the team on his back where we see a Derrick Henry take over games, where we saw a Christian McCaffrey take over games. We're not talking about the overall result of winning division or winning the NFC or going to the playoffs. But what we're seeing with Tampa Bay is that there's no excuse for Tom Brady's performance. Like I said, Tom Brady does not work at Six Flags or SeaWorld or Disney, so we shouldn't be giving him a pass whatsoever. We're not talking about 7 rings. We're talking about 2022, James. This is not 2002 or 2001. Lamar Jackson is doing more with less. The crazy thing, James, we were talking about for stats for quarterbacks before we started the show, after we had what felt like a lot of time of technical issues on my part, is this. Geno Smith in almost every single category outside of passing yards is playing better with less than Tom Brady. Tom Brady is 18th in the NFL in QBR. He's the middle of the pack at best in QBR because in the last 2 games, he's thrown the ball 93 times. Guys, if you're Mahomes, Brady, or Wilson, and any quarterback in the National Football League, throwing the ball over 130 times in a 3-game stretch is not going to win you a Super Bowl. This entire season, Tom Brady he's never had anything under 27 passes a game. To start the season off, where they should have lost against Dallas, 27, 34, 42, 52, 52. So we're seeing a lot of these garbage time numbers, which results in them being 3 and 5. I cannot believe this, James. Before we continue on to the show, I am genuinely surprised how Lamar Jackson is playing. I never thought I would say this. Lamar Jackson deserves to be paid. Because if he's working with less, your best player was hurt most of the game. 3 catches, 33 yards. Lamar Jackson, if anyone is somehow going to listen, I guarantee you, there's no team that can see this. But I'm advocating for Lamar Jackson. Top 6 in QBR. 4th best in the National Football League with 6 interceptions. Your top 4 in passing touchdowns. Top 4 in passing touchdowns where you lost your best offensive lineman who didn't want to get paid. Goes to Kansas City. You're not only running the football more, you're passing the ball more. I guarantee you, like you said, some guys he's only throwing for 130, 180 passing yards while he was running the ball more. We talked about the AFC West being tough, the NFC West. Well, we got to look at this NFC North here because Lamar Jackson and this team, if we're going to criticize Lamar, if I'm going to criticize Lamar Jackson for not getting the job done in certain games, then I also got to give him credit when credit is due. Now, it's not just on Lamar. This is a good team, nearly 62 completion percentage on the season, 13 touchdowns. If your best weapon is a tight end, you have top 4 in passing touchdowns, top 6 in QBR. So what excuse does Tom Brady have when he is top 18 in QBR, top 16 in passing touchdowns? He's an average quarterback in passing touchdowns. He's an average quarterback in QBR. Because in the last couple of games, 62.5, 65.3, 59.4. In the last 3 games, Tom Brady has 2 touchdowns, no picks. It doesn't matter how great your quarterback is. You cannot throw the ball in the last 2 games 93 times. So in the last 2 games, You completed 58 of 93. That's less than 60% of your passes. And you're expected to win a division. Tom Brady is like my clothes after the start of the work week. Completely washed. Obviously, James, we have a lot of NFL stories to get to, and so we'll get to them a lot quicker than Tom Brady does in the divorce of Giselle.
By the way, Baltimore now 5-3, in first place in that in an AFC North division. Now, here in Southern California, the Chargers are reeling from injuries. They have all year long.
Ugh.
It started with Keenan Allen with the hamstring injury. Justin Herbert had the ribs injury, and he still went out and played. Remember that game that they lost to Jacksonville very bad?
Mm-hmm. I picked them
Um,
that week.
yeah, I did. Oh, I did too. Yeah. But their big free agent acquisition, J.C. Jackson, the cornerback from New England, was placed on the IR on Wednesday. Jackson is out for the season with a ruptured patellar tendon, and honestly, he never really played. And uh, a couple of times this year he tried, but it felt like he was never really out there, never part of the team. And I think the Chargers tried to keep it hush why he wasn't playing. It was the oddest thing. They tried that with Justin Herbert with the ribs. They didn't want that news getting out there before he played.
Ironically,
Mike,
another rib situation. Terod Taylor, who got his ribs punctured. Remember, he has that lawsuit against the Chargers health guys. So
mm-hmm.
that's a little bit sketchy there. I'm pretty sure the Shanahan's are involved with that, but who knows?
And then also the Chargers placed Mike Williams, their high leaping wide receiver, on the IR. He's been playing very well this year. He's been the main target without Allen for Justin Herbert. He had a sprained ankle, and I think he's lucky it was just that. The way his um, leg and his foot bent back, it looked really worse, and it could have been way worse. So he's out for a minimum 4 games. It could be more. The Chargers haven't really gone out to replace those two, but they went out and got some middle of the road linebackers from other teams. But those are two big losses. I mean, J.C. Jackson was supposed to be the guy along with Asante Samuel Jr.,
Mm-hmm.
and that was going to be the the great thing they had. The Chargers, by the way, and this surprised me. They've given up 189 points this year, and this was
Ooh.
supposed to be a defense. They had Joey Bosa too playing, and then he got hurt, and he hasn't been back since week 2 or 3
Mm-hmm.
or 4, whenever it was. But they are the third worst of giving up points in the NFL. And that's just so surprising for a Charger team that has Khalil Mack. They have Joseph Day, the defensive tackle, who's been a beneficiary of Bosa and Mack coming in, that leaves the middle for Day to get sacks. But with all this being said, the Chargers, they're still uh, 1 game out of first from Kansas City. Uh, Herbert can find other people, but the running a game has to do better, and that's just part of the Charger kind of curse. They could be in San Diego, they could be in other places, but they'll still have these odd injuries. And it's amazing, John, how this J.C. Jackson signing from New England, which it seems like nobody from New England who signs as a free agent to another team, it seems like they never do well. I don't know what it is, but what's your
Belichick has a
thoughts on
voodoo
JC?
doll.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on Jackson and Williams being out for the Chargers?
First, I truly think generally the Chargers need to go after a guy like Judy or DJ Moore or Chase Claypool. While there are rumors, like I was just looking at, that the Panthers are unlikely to trade DJ Moore. Well, they're the same team that said they weren't tanking, but obviously you can't say to the media, "Yeah, we're tanking." You lose picks, you lose everything, and you could get fired. That's a hotter mess than J.R. Smith in the 2019 NBA Finals or 2018 NBA Finals. But here's the fact of the situation. I was a Justin Herbert defender.
Mm-hmm.
After last week, I am no longer a Justin Herbert fan as a quarterback. At some point, yes, you could say injuries. I'm pretty sure Albert Haynesworth is J.C. Jackson's cousin. Another terrible free agency signing. And obviously, Corey Lindsey, I think, has been out for a while. You've had a lot of injuries. This is the thing about Bosa. Bosa has been injured a lot in his NFL career. So I don't think he is a guy, but long term, is he? Didn't they give him a new contract? Oh, that's right. They basically signed him to a deal. The problem, though, and I didn't like the signing, because how consistent he was hurt. Because looking at Joey Bosa's contract, he's technically not unrestricted free agent until 2026. So if they were to release him, do you know how much dead cap they would have if they released him? $66 million with 28
I was about to say 46.
and nearly $20.5 million in cap hit. So that's nearly $90 million
Damn.
to a guy who I believe is really good, but isn't consistently healthy. He reminds me of, obviously, Nick Bosa, or obviously the tight end George Kittle. Phenomenal, really, really good players. But they can't stay healthy. We can talk about potential all day. The problem is potential doesn't mean that you're going to actually do something with your career. I think looking at Joey Bosa, his numbers in terms of, let's see, how many games he started. Because I remember I was like, this guy just got the injury bug. He can't play. So look at his career. 2022. Okay. He started 11 games his rookie year. So he missed 5 games his rookie year. He missed 10 games in 20. So in the first 3 seasons, he missed 15 games. 2020 misses 6 games. So from 2016 to 2020, he's basically, let's say 5. There's, let's say 5, 10, and then there's 6 more. 16 games from 2016 to 2020. And you give him a new contract. That's why, James, I didn't agree with that. But with the J.C. Jackson trade, it's not a surprise. I don't know what it is. Guys outside of New England don't work outside of New England unless they had success with the team before they went to New England. That's the only situation that I can think of. But before I continue, I'm get to the comment. I don't know who this is, but they said, I hate the NFL. Believe me, just because I love the NFL, man, but you got to keep them held accountable. Said, man, and look, guys, new offense now. Imagine trying to guard McKeel. And that's obviously something we will get into, so I appreciate you bringing that up with Kadarius Toney, former first-round pick for the Giants, traded to the Chiefs. We'll get to that in just a little bit.
Really?
Yeah, it was crazy because the Giants are 6-1. I guarantee he hasn't put in the work. He hasn't been successful whatsoever in the national. So this is great. Another weapon for Patrick Mahomes. But we'll get to that in a little bit. So for the first 4 years of Joey Bosa's career, he's missed 16 games. So I don't know. 5, 10, 6. So 16 games. And 67, 80. So it's 67, 80. So in 5 seasons, he's missed 16 games already. His first 2 years, he's already missed 5 games. So this is a team that's somehow supposed to get to a Super Bowl. Teams that win Super Bowls don't make boneheaded decisions and sign injury-prone players. I'm not saying there's a curse or anything. I don't believe in that. Like with the Bosa brothers, I believe George Kittle deserved that contract. Injury-prone again and again. Unless when you're not injured, you can perform long enough before you get injured again. Gronk, I believe, to a certain extent, is the main exception. But this, James, this doesn't surprise me, man, because you have the opportunity to trade for other players. The Cardinals traded for Robbie Anderson because Hollywood Brown is most likely out for the season. So, what excuse do the Chargers have for not getting the weapons for Justin Herbert? This is what separates teams that have potential and that actually reach and do and achieve that potential. You have these decent cap or players or anything like that to move around to trade for DJ Moore. Because DJ Moore has been the most underrated receiver in the National Football League for the last 3 years, 1,000+ yards straight in the past 3 years. With Cam Newton, T.J. Walker, sent so many different quarterbacks. Despite what Steve Smith said, and obviously on a video of Cam Newton, the fact is, I don't want to hear, oh, Justin Herbert didn't have this, Justin Herbert didn't have that. It's like asking for how we were kids, James, where I didn't have a chance to finish the test or I didn't have to test the homework. Did you use your resources? Did you look for opportunities? The Chargers have an opportunity to trade for a player, and yet again, the Chargers never left San Diego in terms of their football decisions. DJ Moore's Chase Claypool, imagine. You're not getting a lot. You didn't get a lot for your former receiver, Kadarius Toney. I think that's how you pronounce his name. So a couple other players left. The Panthers didn't get diddly squat for Robbie Anderson. They're not going to get a lot for DJ Moore. You're not going to get a first-round pick. You're not going to get a mid-second-round pick. So if that's the case, Chargers have the capital in terms of picks. Trade for him. So do you think, James, trading for a receiver for the LA Chargers is somehow going to change the outcome for them this season?
It feels like they've never made a move at the trade deadline. It feels like they never did. They just brought someone up or they got a free agent or something. But it seems like they never made a bold move. I might be wrong on that, but and then it just seems like throughout their time that injuries derailed them either right at training camp or during the season. But if you have the draft picks, if you have the capital, if you have someone you're trying to release, the Chargers should. Because right now it's still, looking at them again, they're 4-3. You're right in the mix with Cincinnati, with Miami, to get a wild card spot right there, right? You should do whatever you can to get better. For the Chargers, it just seems like again, they never really made those moves. But we'll see what happens with that. Now, I do have not a crazy story, but the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles, they're 6-0.
Mm-hmm.
They went out and acquired Robert Quinn, the defensive end. He's 32 years old. He does have a slow start with 1 sack, but he had 18.5 sacks last year for the Bears. He was awesome last year. And this just makes the Eagles even better. This is a defense already, the defensive line that already has Hanson Reddick, Josh Sweat, Javon Hellgrove, Fletcher Cox, who's a veteran, Brandon Graham, who's still around doing great, and then the rookie Jordan Davis from Georgia, who's, great viral guy, but he's learning from Graham and Fletcher Cox, and I think you also have Slay there and Bradbury, I believe, as corners. It just seems like they have everything going for them for Philadelphia, and they only get better. I think the only thing that was hard to take about this trade was Roquan Smith on Tuesday. And think about it. It was the day right after the Bears went to beat New England on the road and beat them decisively on Monday Night Football. Then the next morning, the trade happens. Quinn is gone to Philadelphia. Smith is at the podium there in tears. I think Smith himself, he wants to be traded as well. I know he had a request to be traded in training camp, but he decided to stay. Now, Reminder: the deadline is November 1st. So there's still a chance he could be so pissed that they traded Quinn, who is a great veteran, probably taught him a lot, taught him how to be an NFL player. It's part of the business, but you could tell Quinn made a definite mark on the Bears defense, and maybe they're a little weaker without him now, but it's just the Eagles' gain here. So what did you think about Robert Quinn being moved to the Philadelphia Eagles?
Shannon Sharp made a really good point. Robert Quinn, for many reasons, you just say age or whatever is to your own. The Chicago has not played from a lead this entire season up until playing the New England Patriots. So now you free a lot of pressure off Robert Quinn, where you go to a team who has had the lead multiple times this season. You had a 17-0 lead against the Dallas Cowboys. You had multiple leads this season, which can free him up to be, okay, we're stopping the run. We're up by 10, 15 points. That can see his numbers increase a total lot. It's a lot of pressure off because now you're trying to do so much more. You're trying to reinvent the wheel. Oh, we're down by 10, 50 points. Let me get this sack. Instead of now, you get to play all relaxed, all chill. You're up by 10, 15 points, and it presses you to now, at the end of the year, I can see him merely having double-digit sacks because you go to a team who's most likely going to win the NFC East and a top team in the NFC so far through the first 8 weeks, and I've been wrong about. Mind you, though, I believe the Eagles are also coming off a bye. Being 6-0, how they were beating the Cowboys 17-0 right before halftime. So now getting a defensive end where it's going to a team that is in a winning culture, that is up in leads multiple times this season, which could free up him to get a ton of sacks to help this team where certain games where this is a phenomenal trade, where it could be like a Von Miller type of thing where it might not show up in his individual numbers, but he's going to make this team better. This basically shows the Eagles are all in and trying to contend for a Super Bowl. You don't make You don't make a veteran defensive trade along with Fletcher Cox, Josh Sweat, Maddox, Darius Slay. There's another cornerback for the Eagles.
Was it Bradbury?
Bradbury, I think. You have that entire defense who's playing really well, who I believe picked off forgot who twice this season against in one of the games a couple weeks ago.
Cooper
Rush. You picked him up twice in that game. So
3 times.
3 times. Sorry. Clearly had almost as many interceptions as he did his number on his jersey. But that's neither here nor there. This is for real. I think the Eagles are the team to be in the NFC East, if not the NFC, because right now we haven't seen a team necessarily expose Jalen Hurts and this offensive line and obviously the defense. Now with Robert Quinn, can that really free up the run? Can that really free up the play action? Because now that your team is playing from ahead, that frees up Robert Quinn to get to the quarterback. Jalen Hurts is going to feel more rested. You're going to see this offense flowing even better, which is scary. When you look at teams like the Niners, like the Giants, you can say whatever, Giants are 6-1. But we truly know, at least for right now, the Eagles are the only true contender in the NFC East. And you look at a lot of these NFC teams before I give the reins back to you, there aren't really a lot of true NFC teams that are contenders. So we say, oh, maybe they're a contender this week or maybe they're not. The Eagles are a better team than the Packers. Do we see a Packers, at least to the first 7 weeks, James? Are they true contenders at this point in time to the first 7 weeks? No. Are the
Packers?
Niners?
No.
Are the Niners true contenders right now through the first 7 weeks? No.
No.
Are Chicago a true contender through the first 7 weeks? No. They play really well, but they're not. Is Seattle a true contender? You could say yes. Is Washington a true contender? Mm-hmm. No. Is Detroit a true contender? No. Is Arizona a true contender? No. Is Minnesota fine? So that's 6 teams already. Is Atlanta a true contender? No. Mm-hmm. Is Dallas a true contender? That's still up for debate. So that's just 7 teams, James, that are truly not contenders consistently, that we can be confident in saying these are true contenders through the first 7 weeks. And that's just in the NFC. So with that being set aside, with this trade, this makes this team better. Now you have the Eagles. They're better. They've been better than Atlanta. They're better than Dallas. They're better than Arizona. Like, even though this is so different than the Arizona Cardinals offense to maybe the Washington offense or the Bengals offense, where you're going to have Kyle Murray have to throw for 300-plus yards a game with DeAndre Hopkins, with Robbie Anderson being a deep threat, with obviously your running back with James Conner, former Pittsburgh Steeler. I think this is a really good trade. I think what this shows, so not just in terms of numbers, you have a veteran defensive player that can show the young guys how to get better and how to play even better to their full potential. Remember, there was a rookie defender, I can't remember his name, that it was for the Eagles. I think it was in training camp, and he nearly body slammed a guy. Like, he just pushed him down like he was a 50-pound offensive lineman. He looked really, really good. And I just think that he's really going to help elevate this team on offense and defense. And it really could be exciting for the Eagles because I believe Robert Quinn played for, obviously, who did he play? Played for the Steelers, obviously the Rams, Miami for a season, Dallas for a season where he had some really good games there. The last couple of years, man, he started 29 games. So I think you're going to get a consistent starter. That's going to free up a lot of offensive plays, considering one of your main staples of your offensive line outside of Jason Kelce is with Dallas, but he's 36, 37 years old. So I think it's a great trade, and you really could see how this frees up a lot of time on different offensive packages.
By the way, I forgot to mention, Chicago gets a 4th-round pick from this trade. I mean, it's crazy. That's all it takes is, we saw that trade with the Jets and the Jaguars, how James Robinson was traded just for a 6th-round pick that could turn into a 5th-rounder, but
which is crazy,
it's so much different. In the NFL, it's so much different than other sports with all these, multiple round picks, but later for maybe some not great players, but key players and important players that teams might need.
Think about it. The last 2 years, James Robinson had over 400 rushes, had 15 touchdowns the last 2 seasons. Mind you, he's only been in the NFL for 2 seasons so far because we haven't finished this season. He's a total of 18 touchdowns and not even 3 full seasons, and they only get a 6th-round pick. You average over 1,800 yards your first 2 seasons. You're averaging over 900 yards per year in your first 2 seasons. And you draft a guy who was injured, and you still put up 8 touchdowns, a career high so far through the season. You had your longest run of the season last year of 58 yards. You're averaging over 4.1 yards per carry consistently through your first 2.5 seasons. And somehow, through all of these numbers, he started 27 games in the first 2 years and still don't get a 5th or 6th-round pick. That Jaguars GM deserves to be fired. Because there's no way.
Yeah.
He was selected. He's a Pro Bowler. And selected first team AP All-Pro in your first 2 seasons in the NFL, with the running back shelf being shorter than, obviously, Giselle's temper with Tom Brady, which is why they're getting divorced, and you still get a 5th or 6th-round pick? Like, that makes no sense. This is different than a Kadarius Toney going to the Kansas City Chiefs, or Juju Smith getting a deal with Kansas City, or maybe what Antonio Brown was getting that 1 year with the Patriots. But this just makes no sense from a football perspective, a fan decision. Like, Jason, if I were to tell you, okay, this running back, 15 touchdowns his first 2 years. Started 27 games. He started every single game his first 2 seasons, averaging over 1,800 yards his first 2 years combined. You would guess, what would your guess to see potentially? What would the Jaguars get for him?
At least a 2nd-rounder, multiple 2nd-round picks.
You have to. He has 485 attempts, and he already has 3 touchdowns on the season. So not only this is as big of a steal. This is a bigger steal than when the Cowboys traded Amari Cooper for a 6th-round pick. Yes, Amari Cooper's on pace to have 1,000 yards and 5+ touchdowns, but James Robinson is a bigger steal for the Jets. You now have poor Michael Carter because he keeps getting rolled into the deal, but now you have James Robinson and Michael Carter, who, while Zach Wilson has struggled this season and has been a better player off the field than on the field. Obviously, it doesn't feel good to be a gangster because he can't do anything on the field. You don't have to research on that. There's been shirts made by Jets players, but to get a 6th round, there had to be some type of tomfoolery, but absolutely insane. But I still can't believe they got a 5th or 6th round pick for James Robinson. I mean, my gosh, this really could help Zach Wilson, and this really could help this team because now you put up Elijah Moore in the slot. Now you have that defense, Carl Lawson, and obviously C.J. Mosley, who's finally starting to step up a little bit after the injuries of getting traded and signed in 2020. This really could free up. Jets have to be better in the red zone. This could really eliminate time of possession. Because now you trade for James Robinson and you trade for a bag of chips and a half-warm bottle of Gatorade. So look at their upcoming schedule now with James Robinson. You play New England on Sunday, and based how I said, if Chicago is effective near and in the red zone, they're going to beat New England. That's exactly what they did. Now the same thing with the Jets. If you're going to have James Robinson immediately come in with Michael Carter that frees up plays in the slot, the screen pass, the play action, the Jets are beating the Patriots on Sunday. That's my hot prediction. I think James Robinson is going to help this team, not only just in New England or potentially playing against Buffalo. Then obviously the following week, November 20th, you play New England again. And if you beat New England both times this season, mind you, James, and they beat Detroit and they beat Jacksonville, and you have a chance to beat Miami, you can see the Jets in the playoffs. I'm not saying trading for James Robinson is going to make him contenders, but it really does help him and free up some stress from Zach Wilson, where he may be struggling, run the ball. James Robinson is a perfect running back. Absolutely crazy.
Let's stick with the Jets real quick. So, disgruntled wide receiver Elijah Moore, he returned to practice with the Jets, and he's expected to play against New England. He requested a trade last week. He was frustrated and disappointed with the lack of passes going his way, opportunities going his way, I should say. Even though the Jets are 5-2, he was held out of practice last Thursday and Friday, and he didn't even travel with the team on Saturday to Denver. The Jets still won their 4th straight over Denver, 16-9. Head coach Robert Saleh said, "We've had talks. He's good. We're all good. He just needs to go out and do what he does." And see if we can get him the ball and make a few plays. Easier said than done when you have Zach Wilson not being as good as advertised, being the 2nd round pick, being a franchise saver in a way. But he's doing it another way. He's doing it with handing the ball off, of course, making little passes. Elijah Moore, of course, he's been on Twitter too much, I would say, during the last couple of weeks, he's talking about religious stuff, but he's not really translating that into football. And quickly, I don't know the parameters about him. I just know when you have someone like Zach Wilson who's supposed to be better passing, the wide receivers, anyone can get frustrated. But when you go on social media and blast people, when you do it that way, it's not good. I really thought he was going to get traded, but they brought him back, and I think he's only back because they're 5-2, looking to go 6-2. So I'm interested to see what catches he can make, especially being a home game too. You know how the New York fans can be. If he drops any passes, they're gonna boo him right away. Just imagine that, like right away. Oh, you don't want to be here? Well, why are you here if you're gonna drop passes for the team? So I'm gonna be interested to see that, man. I know that's and it's a great divisional game as well. And I think people want to hate watch New England do bad because of all the years they've had that we had to suffer. Everyone's had to suffer through.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Moore just needs to go out and ball out, in my opinion. What do you think about Elijah Moore?
You know what's funny? You know who their offensive coordinator is? I'll tell
No.
you this right now. Matt LaFleur's
No.
brother, Mike LaFleur.
I didn't know you had a brother. Okay.
I didn't know he did either. I was just looking up Zach Wilson because Zach Wilson has not
Oh.
developed this season. So basically, you have two Ladoodoo in the NFL who clearly should be sponsored by Charmin because their offense is as soft and inconsistent as my butthole after I have Taco Bell. So excuse me, like it just is what it is. So Matt LaFleur, who can't develop. Wait, are we in Hawaii?
No. Taco Bell.
I know, like erupting. I know. But you had Matt LaFleur, who had the sixth worst offense with Tennessee, brings it to Green Bay. It doesn't work. Mike LaFleur is an offensive coordinator for the New York Jets and Zach Wilson. In the last 2 weeks, Zach Wilson has 231 yards, no touchdowns, no picks, with a QBR of no higher than 73.8. Zach Wilson hasn't had a touchdown since they played the Steelers.
Wow.
So James Robinson, was dual threat. You traded for him for a bag of chips and a cold one. I say cold. I'm always talking about Monsters because Monster wouldn't sponsor me, so thank you, Monster. I appreciate it. So basically, this is going to force Zach Wilson, like someone said, it's going to put pressure on Zach Wilson. You're a second overall pick. You're going to have to perform. A lot of times, people look at quarterbacks first overall, top 5 overall, and automatically assume that high potential means you're going to have a highly successful career. Look at Marcus Mariota. Look at Baker Mayfield. Look at Sam Darnold. Look at Josh Rosen. Josh Allen wasn't even picked in the top 5 in the 2018 draft. Top 7. That's insane. He's the best quarterback of that draft class. Which I'm genuinely not surprised. I saw that early on in his rookie year. But this is going to have to force Zach Wilson to play better. But at the same time, you don't have a great offensive coordinator. Yes, Robert Salah. I'm keeping the receipts. The receipt is as long as CBS with all those excuses you're going to be making when you do not have an offensive coordinator. Matt LaFleur is not getting the job done even when they had Devontae Adams. Mike LaFleur has – first of all, Elijah Moore, who the fuck do you think you are demanding a trade? You have not earned any respect in that organization. You just started your second year in the National Football League. You have potential, but haven't reached it just yet in your second year in the National Football League with the Jets. Who are you demanding and waltzing around? Brady's earned that. Roethlisberger earned that. Obviously, Wilson didn't earn it. Breeze earned that. Mahomes earned that. Very few quarterbacks have earned that and proved their seat in the National Football League and within their organization. Who do you think you demand a trade? For what reason? This is not Robbie Anderson, who rightfully deserves so. A undrafted rookie free agent had some really okay years, but he had a lot of potential. Went to Carolina, fine, rightfully so. But honestly, man, I don't think he should have been asked for a trade. Like, what do you have to prove? Let's actually look up his numbers because I want you to put in the work as much as you do your Twitter figures. Because if you're more focused to me on Twitter figures, then you're not serious about getting better. You're in your second year in the NFL. So you're not playing this week. Well, that was about 7 days ago. So you weren't playing this past week. You demanded a trade. You're sounding a little bit like Corey Coleman with the Browns during that Hard Knocks. I remember in Hard Knocks in 2018, first round pick, a top pick, had a lot of potential in the National Football League, but was complaining about how, trade me. Why don't you just trade me? He's not getting the reps. He's not getting what he wants. And now, years later, we haven't heard from him. Shit, actually, Chris, I'm going to look this up. I was reading the show. We haven't heard Corey Coleman in so many years. He's a free agent. He was a top pick in 2015, I believe. And look at him now. Played apparently a very short time with the Chiefs and with the Giants. And he's out of the league. So who the heck do you think you are? Have you earned – you lost respect from myself and others of fans of you. You're demanding a trade for what reason? Are you playing like Antonio Brown? Are you playing like a Mike Evans? Are you playing like Julio Jones did in Atlanta? Are you playing like DJ Moore? Are you playing like a Juju Smith or Chase Claypool did or George Pickens with the Steelers? Because if he really wants to go that route, let's actually look up. I'm looking at his numbers right. I always spell his name wrong. Elijah Moore. Okay, let's look at his numbers. If he really wants to go there, okay. All right. Your first year, you had 538 yards, 5 touchdowns so far this year, 16 receptions for 203 yards, and you haven't had a game for over 53 yards this season. And you think you have the right to demand a trade? Yes, I can say Zach Wilson. You can't have an excuse, I feel like, because when you see guys like a Mike Evans, like a DJ Moore, like a DeAndre Hopkins, up until Brady, were working with what they had. At the same time, the Jets do not have an offensive coordinator. Mike LaFleur is not an offensive coordinator. Mixing with a guy who I do not believe is a franchise quarterback in the National Football League, mixed with his brother, another quarterback in the National Football League, who can't get the job done. At some point, I mean, really, do you really think the Jets can go that far with Mike LaFleur as their offensive coordinator? Just you trade for James Robinson. Are we really going to see those production and numbers with Elijah Moore in the slot? If Zach Wilson is not throwing the ball for more like 150, 160 yards, how is Elijah Moore going to be effective at the slot? Christian Wilson does have a comment before we get back to the show. So the Jets have no offensive coordinator, Mike LaFleur. How are they winning games? It's their defense, Christy. I think James and I could agree. You go back to the
running
Packers game, defense and running game. Like you look at Breece Hall, who had the speed. And I said this, Breece Hall was the first potential 1,000-yard rusher for the Jets since Chris Ivory, I believe, in 2015. That is insane. He had the speed. He was, mind you, with that, you're winning time of possession. You're getting the defense tired. You saw that phenomenal running touchdown. I mean, this guy had similar speed to Chris Johnson did in his early years with the Tennessee Titans. Really, really good player. Winning time of possession. Had a lot of speed. Unfortunately, he's out for the rest of the year. So now, I think despite trading for James Robinson, which is a good trade, if you don't have the right staff, if you don't have the right coordinator, Christy, I don't think this is going to help the Jets because sooner or later, you're going to have to play Buffalo. Are you beating Buffalo? You're not beating Buffalo. And you said one of your defensive players for Buffalo is going to be back. Buffalo has Stephon Diggs. Josh Allen's in the MVP conversation. But I ask you, James, obviously, Michael LaFleur's the offensive coordinator, like Chris said, but they don't have one. How do you think they're going to win games moving forward? Yes, you got James Robinson, entirely new offense. Elijah Moore is throwing a fit. How do you see the Jets winning games? Is it going to be? Do you see this similar to what you see with the Jets with Mark Sanchez? Really, really good defense, had a decent running game, but you have no quarterback.
It's almost like that, and then it's almost like what the Giants are doing, where they're winning ugly. It's basically just what they're doing. That's how I see it. Where you score points with the running game, and you rarely throw for anything special. But you rely on the defense to do the job. Tougher, easier said than done against Buffalo, though. That's going to be the big key. But if they do it against Miami, then they're for real, in my opinion. Because Miami has all those great receivers. Waddle, Hill, Gesicki, who, by the way, was on the trade on the trade rumors, which I couldn't understand that.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot of those going out there. So I think that's the way they do it, though. They win ugly like the other New Jersey team.
It has to be the defense. I'm looking at these numbers, James.
Oh yeah,
They've allowed less than 20 points per game as a defense for the first 7 weeks. You've allowed
137 points overall.
Exactly. So essentially, you're allowing, let's say, let me do the math one. You're allowing, but you're also allowing over 300 yards of offense for the opponent per game. So while your defense is not allowing a lot of points, you're allowing a lot of empty calorie yards later in games, despite being 5-2. So James Robinson is really going to have to help on that offensive front. If you're going to be winning the time of possession, then that should help the defense work on stuff on the sidelines, be more restful, because you've allowed 8 rushing touchdowns on the season. Mind you, this defense needs to be better in the red zone. You've allowed 16 total touchdowns. Your time of possession allowed is 31 minutes a game. So now that has to be flipped to the Jets offense. Because Zach Wilson's not going to win you the game with his arm or his legs, like you saw with multiple other different quarterbacks. But the Jets have 8 interceptions on the season. So what they're reading the quarterback really well, but with their lack of offense, it exposes other parts of that defense while you're allowing over 300 yards of offense per game. But honestly, we'll have to see. Their defensive team ranking obviously is 27th right now. They have a top 25 defense in the National Football League. So really, I think this 5-2 is going to blow up very, very soon, because if your offense is 28th in the National Football League and your defense is 25th, at some point, something is going to break. Yep. Something is going to happen, and I bet you it's going to be that offense. Zach Wilson in the next 3 to 4 games, in my genuine opinion, this is not The Simpsons where they predict almost everything right. He's going to have a costly play, and it's going to cost him. You can't be the 4th worst offense ranked in the National Football League and be 5-2 and expect to make the playoffs. This is where I say wins and losses early on, James, can be really, really deceptive, because, 28th in offense and 25th in defense, because that's where the 300 yards of offense allowed per game. You allowed 12 red zone touchdowns this season. So your defense is not good in the red zone. Your defense is only good in one category in terms of points allowed per game, only allowing 20 points a game, but yet getting to those 20 points, you're having a lot of empty calorie yards, which still results in a loss against the Jets. But at some point, your defense is going to have to be a lot more physical in every single category. But the offense, I think we all can agree, James, Christy, people that are going to be watching this, have to match what your defense is doing. If your quarterback cannot throw the deep ball and win you games, you're going to continue to see this defense be top 28, top 25. You're not going to see a lot of great plays. I'm sorry. This is just not me hating. This is looking at the numbers. You cannot be fourth worst offense in the NFL expect to make the playoffs. I think the Jets still end up having 7-8 wins on the season. I think it's going to completely flip-flop, and I'll be right back. I'm keeping the receipts. I am, because 28th worth offense, at some point, they're not as good. Tua can win you games with his arm, and I'm not saying that they're good games. I'm not saying you're scoring a lot of points, but they did. You could say, oh, it's the Steelers. Came back after a concussion. I was out for about 2 weeks. Tua is winning the games with his arm. I'm not saying they're great, but you're making plays with his arm. So is obviously Zappy has a better arm than Zach Wilson, despite him playing what he did. So at some point, defense in the AFC East is going to determine who doesn't make it in the playoffs, especially with the Jets being the 4th worst, so the 7th worst defense in the National Football League.
Yes. Really quick, I just want to run through some other news. Buffalo Bills are going to get Tre'Davious White back from a left knee injury. Actually, no. He'll be out one more week. They were hoping to have him Sunday night against Green Bay. Remember, the Bills are without Micah Hyde, but there was some fear that White would be out for longer, but not as long as I think people thought, so that's good. Also, the Detroit Lions coming off of the 27-6 loss against the Cowboys on the road.
Yeah.
Their owner shared her frustration with the 1-5 record, but still has confidence in their leadership. Uh, with general manager, who was it? Not Bob Quinn. They got rid of him and Matt Patricia, but Brad Holmes and head coach Dan Campbell. She feels that there's still belief in the leadership. There's still something there. Um, but the funny thing is, she mentioned, "Hey, we still got 11 more games to go. So I don't want everyone just to push. I don't want everyone to push the panic button and give up just yet. I think we got the right people in the place to pull this off. I truly believe that. I wouldn't say that if I didn't believe it." So the owner here, Sheila Ford Happen, everybody's been clamoring for her to sell the team. It's like um, the situation with the Bears. Therefore, they want her to sell the team. I forget the not young but old
Their
lady's
name's
name
not
there.
important because they're not relevant.
Yeah, yeah. When you think about it, yeah. So it's amazing to think you're 1-5, nothing's going right for you, but you're as senile as you're thinking here, where you still have a shot when the Vikings are better than you. Everybody's better than you. Even the Bears are better than you. I think that's saying a lot. I think she's totally lost her mind. But in that fact that, hey, they can make something happen just this year. That's awful to say that, in my opinion. I know she's trying to say the right thing and boost morale and whatever, but not this year.
Bro, did you remember the Hall of Fame
Uh
thing back earlier before the season started when Carol Johnson got inducted to the Hall of Fame? They were booing the Ford family.
Boom.
Nobody's
That's all you
buying
need to
what you're
know.
selling. Nobody, you could literally sell me a gold brick that would make me $1 billion a day, and people still wouldn't buy it because
That's
it's the
bad.
Ford family.
um. Yeah, I didn't know about that, and that just speaks volumes there. Um. Okay, I know we talked about this. I think off air Monday. I think it's a 5-year plan. It's a 5-year contract with Dan Campbell. You're going to have growing pains, but all you ask for is progress. They had that finishing up last season where they looked like they were going places. Uh, right away though, this season it started
Mhm.
from opening day where they lost a thriller at home against Philadelphia. The place was sold out and rocking. Philadelphia though won by a field goal, I believe, and it just went on from there to 1-5 now. I believe there's progress going on, but you can blame whatever you want: injuries, bad play. Uh, I don't know where to go from here, but and I know you have a saying, and I've known you for a little bit now.
Mhm.
Mediocrity, you won't accept mediocrity.
Nah.
Well, that's what the Lions are, though. That's all they've been. This is them.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think they could get any. It can't get worse than this. It can only get better. I'm preaching patience. I know. I think I know where you're going with this, but can you give Dan Campbell all 5 years to make it work in the fifth year, or do they tear up things again? Get rid of Goff, get rid of the GM, get rid of Campbell after this season. If it gets in, let's say they go 1-16, right? Would
Oh,
you get rid of? Would you get rid of Campbell? Would you go in a different direction? Well, they have no direction. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying.
they
You
only
weren't
have one
expecting
direction,
much.
and it's out of the playoffs.
Yeah, I wasn't really expecting much. It may be like 6 wins. Maybe they'll get 3 this year if they're lucky. Um, but what do you think that line situation is? Obviously, she's got to sell. Ford has to sell. Hamp has to sell. But
Mhm.
I know she won't. Um, do you keep Campbell around if it gets worse? Does the GM take the bullet and say, "Fire! I'm going to fire myself as well"? How can the Lions get back from this?
They don't, because he would be fired at the end of the season. The Panthers. What is an indication of, James, is the Panthers fired their head coach. Right, it was a 6 year deal. They fired him midway through the season, in his fourth season his third season, before he even finished his third season, or not even halfway through the third season, they fired him already. Because they still did not have a quarterback. They still did not have an offensive line. You should have traded McCaffrey when you first got there. Like I said, I believe he has the heart. I believe he has, like, similar to what Doug Peterson's doing in Jacksonville. But at some point, heart doesn't win you games.
Mm-hmm.
And
Talent.
it's great. You could have heart. You could have all of that. I have the heart too. That doesn't mean the NFL Network's going to call me tomorrow. At some point, yes, I'll be in the industry, but that doesn't mean that Tom Brady's going to come or call me tomorrow. So at some point, you can have all the heart you want and want to do better. Anybody wants to do better, but look at the Bucs. They're 3-5. Look at the Panthers. They have no head coach. Their interim head coach is the same guy that drafted Josh Rosen in 2018. Do better means freaking nothing unless you actually put it into action. In Detroit, you don't know who your quarterback is going to be. 2023 draft is going to be insane. If you literally have 3 or 4 wins on the season, I don't see how you go into the 2023 season without saying hot seat, hot seat, hot seat. Because if the Jets implode, Barbara Saleh's on the hot seat. The Panthers are looking for a coach. Who knows if Todd Bowles, if the Bucs miss the playoffs, Todd Bowles is getting the majority of the blame. Because the problem is with the media and organizations with Brady, when Brady wins, oh, Brady this, Brady that. But when they lose, it's everybody else's fault. So there can be multiple coach openings coming up this offseason, especially I think when you look at a couple other teams here. If the Cowboys with the playoffs, there's another option right there. If there is, let's say, Cleveland the next year or so, if they miss the playoffs, I mean, I'm sorry, but you gave Deshaun Watson that contract, no excuse. The Colts head coach is going to be potentially gone after this season too. So there are already 4 to 5 openings to where I just don't think Dan Campbell is going to be the guy. Because I get, like, rebuilding, but the whole point of your rebuild, James, and I don't like mediocrity in anything. So make sure I'm holding myself accountable in NFL teams. The whole point of a rebuild is to show some progress. The 76ers can say, rebuild, trust the process. Yeah, I trust the process like I do Ben Simmons in his shooting. What is that kind of shade? Ben Simmons still can't shoot. But you're not showing any progress. You're not showing those tiny bits of progress every single week, even if it doesn't show up in the wins and losses. Hugh Jackson, they went 1-15, and they fired him. You showed no progress. The Lions' defense is still literally one of the worst teams in the league. It turns up points allowed. Now their offense is starting to kind of go down the hill because their defense is not replicating what the offense is doing. St. Brown has obviously been injured for a couple of games. Jamal Williams
hasn't done anything.
Hutchinson hasn't done anything either. So if you're second overall pick, along with your top 5 pick from 2019 and Jeff Okudah out of Ohio State, playing with a guy from Michigan, who Michigan beat Ohio State last year, then I think they're going to put him under the bus. They're going to put Dan Campbell under the bus first before they sell the team. Because it's going to be everyone else's fault except for their own. And I believe that's absolutely disgusting. Because I think when you look at this team, I mean, if the Vikings win a division, like I predicted, with that terrible contract, with Kellen Moore now a third stringer back up to the Cleveland Browns, and Chicago is better than them, at some point, if Chicago, even though Chicago's still in rebuild, they're showing improvements. They not only beat the Patriots, they could have beat them 41-14, but they had a mercy rule. They ran the ball effectively in the red zone, just as I told them if they did, they would win this game. I'll collect my check. Tom Herman, you out of a job, I'll take your job. They're showing improvements. They're showing those slight improvements every single, even if it's one play, they're showing those improvements. We're not seeing those improvements in Detroit. We're seeing what Jared Goff is a 1 touchdown, to 1 interception type of quarterback. He's not great. He's not elite. Even with those weapons, with Todd Gurley, who finally retired because of his health, man, has been absolutely insane. I mean, this guy the last 2 weeks has 0 touchdowns, 3 picks, with over 450 passing yards, 457 passing yards, I believe, on the year, with no touchdowns and 3 picks. The QBR of 62.7 and 71. Where for the first 3 games, you were showing something. 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Next week, 256 yards, 4 touchdowns, no pick. That's improvement. I'll give him that. Even if you don't win, improvement. The next week, you go downhill. 277, touchdown to pick. Okay? You rebound the next week. I believe they do lose that game. But still, 378, 4 touchdowns. You're showing improvement. But then you go downhill the next 2 weeks and 0 touchdowns and the 3 picks. So that's kind of where I say Dan Campbell is going to get the blame. If you continue this 1 week or 2 weeks, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick, and the next 3 weeks you don't touchdowns, and you continue to lose games the way you are, I think he could get fired at the end of the season. Because if they fire Matt Rule this early on, if another coach, I believe last year, 2020, midway through the season almost, what's his name? Bill O'Brien got fired from the Houston Texans.
Oh, God.
Midway through the season. So if those are indications, I wouldn't be surprised if Dan Campbell's not the guy next year because I know he wants best. I think he can help this team do a lot, but it doesn't matter. I think it's just not like the book where I think I can. You can think all you want, but it's not showing in their dubs. It's not showing in their wins. And if you continue losing, and if Chicago is better than you, Minnesota is better than you, if you can't beat Chicago 1 out of the 2 times, if you can't beat Minnesota 1 out of the 2 times, do we truly expect Dan Campbell to be there next year? Because you're showing those slight improvements. It also means you have to also beat divisional opponents. You have to beat those big AFC teams, and they're not doing that. Chicago did it. They're 3-4 or whatever on the season so far. They beat New England. Justin Fields has said 178 yards, touchdown to pick. They rushed for over 170 yards in that game. But I think if they continue down this road of 4 touchdowns, no touchdowns, 2 touchdowns, 1 touchdowns, at some point I think he could be on the hot seat, not fired by the end of the year.
I want to say a couple of things. Jeff Okudah, he's been injured for a while, but I know injuries play a role in that, and we haven't seen the full potential for him. Dan Campbell, he's made some questionable game management decisions, one especially against Minnesota. They had that game. When all they could have done was waste some time, they went for like a 60-yard field goal and missed and left the door for Minnesota to score. It was that wide open touchdown for KJ Osborne. That kind of stung because they had, at that time, the most potent offense, but they also couldn't stop anyone. And now nothing's working. And you can just see that there. So with your words and now what I'm realizing, all Dan Campbell has really done is just what he did on Hard Knocks, was just preach.
I would preach has to be into action, and Detroit's not seeing
I would
that.
Die for you. Yeah, he's like, I would die for you guys. Okay, like all these little things he would say.
Look at Mike Vrabel, who early on showed improvement with the team, showed heart. They went to the playoffs. Not saying that they didn't have the same amount of players as they did in Detroit, vice versa. But Jeff Okudah is only in his 3rd year. He has started a total in his first 2 years. Do you want to know how many games he started in his first year?
In his first 2 years,
without looking it up, because I have it right here.
19 and 20.
No, how many games he started for the 2020 and the 2021 season? How many games did he start his first 2 years?
9.
7 games.
Wow, see, that's why I preach patience with him.
Like, that's the thing is, like, he's showing some slight improvement, but the thing is, he started 13 games so far in his career. Before the season's only about halfway over. At some point, what we're seeing potentially with Jeff Okudah, Seattle did see with Rashad Penny. What the Colts had with Marlon Mack. Had some flashes, but obviously got cut for the Texans and is not really in the league no more. Now, obviously with Jonathan Taylor, that's changed since then. But honestly, I think it's Detroit. If they don't get this rolling, you're going to have to see what they used to say on that show in the 2000s. Move that bus out of there. You're going to have to get a new head coach. I agree with the rebuild. I get it takes time. But when you go if you go 2-15, there's no way they're keeping you next year. Matt Rhule's first 2 years, they went 10-22. And they fired him not even halfway through his third season. So if they're that impatient with the Panthers team, imagine the fourth friendly, and that organization was the same organization that fired Jim Caldwell after they went 10-6 and appeared in the playoffs.
Well, wait a minute. This is the same ownership that kept Matt Millen around for all those years as GM and made all those horrible wide receiver picks.
Oh,
so I always think of them, whenever they come up, I always think of those years, how they keep people, but they don't pan out and they continue to be there. It's just, and for injuries, there's a saying, I don't know who came up with it, but the best ability is availability.
Mm-hmm.
I love that saying. Really quick, and I really wanted to hear what you say about this.
Oh boy.
So Broncos quarterback Russell Wilson, he proclaimed himself ready to roll despite a lingering hamstring injury. He missed, of course, the game against the Jets at home. But he had his headset on. He had the play sheet like he was calling the game. They take on the Jaguars early Sunday morning, very early. But
Broncos country, let's ride.
Oh,
get it? Because they were on the plane and I'm sorry.
Oh, I hate that so much.
Broncos country, let's ride.
That's what he was playing when he was doing the high knees.
So they play in London at legendary Wembley Stadium. The Jaguars and Broncos. Imagine that. 6:30 out here, 8:30 your time, 2:30 their time. Hawaiian time would be 3:30. I don't think anyone's getting up before the sun to watch that in Hawaii.
I would stay up for it.
In Hawaii?
Oh yeah.
I sleep right through it. Anyway, he was a limited participant in practice, but Hackett said he was could be ready to go. Wilson quote said, "I feel great, ready to roll. And imagine him reading this, I'm super locked in and hopefully ready to get a big win in London." He also said, quote, I'm walking up and down the aisles," Wilson said.
What?
I am.
What?
Everybody was knocked out. I was doing high knees, working on my legs, and everything
else. The way you're
else.
saying it just adds more comedic entertainment to it, so keep it going.
Unlimited. I was making sure I'm ready to rock. What? John, I'm
sorry. Like, all I have to say is
I could only imagine, and I haven't heard the presser yet, but I want to hear it so bad now.
Oh, I
but
think
everything
I got it right here. I think I got part of the presser. It was this.
Broncos country, let's ride.
I'm sorry.
I just the cringe meter is past 10. It's 11. It's gonna break the meter, man.
456.789. That's how bad it is for cringe.
Yeah, it's awful. He with the commercials, the Subway sub has been eliminated. Not
Just like the Broncos
uh,
from the playoffs.
pretty much. They're what 2-5, last place in the division. Um, I love the spirit. The spirit is great. I don't think waking up your teammates in the middle of the night is good on a flight. I mean that's just stupid. That's to me.
I'm sorry, this is the waste this.
That's really yeah. It's
Oh my
it's
god.
really egotistic in a way. You're putting yourself over the team. It sounds like I'm the most important thing here. Everybody follow me. Let's ride. Basically, I was doing high knees and jumping everywhere. Like, what is that? What? Just
What is
you know
that?
what? Now I want Jacksonville to just destroy him. And
I'm
when
picking Jacksonville. So
I bet. And the thing is, he might not even play Wilson. It might be Rippon again. It just depends how many high knees he Wilson did on the plane, and if he's ready to go. So he's questionable. Well, he's been questionable the last couple of years, I guess. But I can't. First of all, I can't remember a time where a superstar, quote superstar, was traded to another team and has fallen off this much. And it's only the first season of this 7-year deal with the Denver Broncos.
here's the
John,
thing.
what's your reaction to this whole thing that Wilson was saying, doing high knees on a plane and feeling ready to rock, quote unquote?
First, I wish people would have listened to me in July. Russell Wilson is the fourth best quarterback in the AFC West. I'm pretty sure Russell Wilson and or the Broncos organization is sponsored by Life Alert because like I'm falling and I can't get up. Your season is done. I mean, oh my god, like this is what I don't understand. This is not about you, Russell. What the crap is this? I'm doing high knees on the plane while my teammates are sleeping. I'm gonna be. What kind of idea is that? Sometimes the best way to prepare is to sleep and rest. Like I just
But
seen these Subway commercials.
he's
Hey,
unlimited.
you wanna. First of all, you're unlimited in terms of how bad you are. But I mean, I don't understand. I've never seen this in a quarterback or a situation where a lot of times there's been some rumors about former Seattle players turning against him, or maybe he's one way. I
Hmm.
don't know. I don't know him as a. I don't know. But just seeing those Subway commercials, like, "Hey, you want some?" That's is pretty dangerous. I'm like, yeah, like the Broncos being this dangerous to give you a 5-year deal. Like, think about this with the Broncos. All you had to do is finish out 2022 and 2023, and you would have been free, just like Antonio Brown. Ah, free, Grandma. Ah, free. You would have been free from Russell Wilson. And you go, look, I'm doing my high knees. Look at me, mommy. Look at me. Are you recording? What kind of crap is that? Like, are you sure? I've never seen this in my lifetime. Like, it's like you're wanting all of, from what it looks like at least, seems like is you want all the attention. I want it to be about you. And I don't get it. Because I'm not saying you're a bad guy, but my God, why are you doing high knees on the plane? Are you freaking kidding me? Dude, you really prepared, right? You're not winning games because of your legs. All those passing yards you had in Seattle, because you threw the ball down the field to Doug Baldwin when you had him, to Tyler Lockett when you have obviously DK Metcalf the past couple of seasons, second round pick, because you were throwing the ball down the field. You were winning because you were throwing the ball down the field. While you lost that playoff game against Dallas in 2018, number one rushing attack in the league. Creedwood rushing attack, which is why obviously I had Denver losing this game. I mean, my God, I've never seen. I guess there's rumors about Nathaniel Hackett on the hot seat. He's fired after the year. I wouldn't be
Hmm.
surprised genuinely after the Matt Rule firing if he wasn't fired before the end of the season because they could still have time to rebuild around him. But the problem is a lot of those guys are going to be on rookie Courtland Sutton, if I remember, he was drafted in 2018. I think it was that last year Trevor Siemian was part of that team as the starter for the Denver Broncos. He still needs a new contract. 2018, 18, 19, 20, 21. So he's playing on his 5th-year option. So you're going into 2023 with still 6 more years of that contract. You're free from him March of 2029. Or I know,
Dude,
right? It's
that
crazy.
is a lot of time.
And so you
Ouch.
go looking at it, he's going to be a free agent. If there's rumors about Jerry Jeudy getting traded, I wouldn't be surprised. We already had one trade from Kadarius Toney to the Chiefs. We had James Robinson to the Jets. Again, that was a or potentially season-saving trade for the Jets. I just think that with the Broncos, he's not the guy. Because Skip made a good. I don't have it. Mind you, I don't have any respect for Skip Bayless as a broadcaster after what he said. Made comments about what that person got said about mental health. That being said, he made a point though of what was it? There was the reason why the Broncos got Nathaniel Hackett because there was a plan in place, assuming Rodgers was going to come to Denver, reunite with a guy he advocated for to go to Denver, and then it was going to work out. Here the rumors: Rodgers to Denver, Rodgers is going to retire, or they're going to sign and trade him to Denver. All of that. That's why Nathaniel Hackett came to the team, not to coach Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson was what we're seeing wasn't the first option in the first place. That's kind of why you traded for Teddy Bridgewater, because your plan all along was to get Aaron Rodgers. Could have drafted Justin Fields, mind you. Could have drafted Justin freaking Fields, but instead you draft PS2. Not a bad pick. But with Russell Wilson's Fed contract, by the time he starts to complete something in that 5-year deal, PS2 is going to need a new contract, his second contract. So it just mind blows me where their first plan wasn't Russell Wilson. It was going to be Aaron Rodgers goes to Denver, reunites with Nathaniel Hackett, they go to the playoffs, potentially contend for a Super Bowl. But instead, Aaron Rodgers stays in Green Bay for some reason, and maybe not knowing Devontae Adams is going to leave. If you knew Devontae Adams was going to leave, I believe he would have gone to Denver with Nathaniel Hackett, and Russell Wilson probably would have been out of Seattle by 2022, and we would have an entirely different conversation. I just have never seen something so cringeworthy, and it's so weird. If you're about winning, you shouldn't be posting or sharing with everyone, I'm doing high knees on the plane. Your knees aren't the problem. It's your decisions as a thrower. What the heck does your knees have to do with your mental decisions? Oh, I should throw it over here. I should throw it over here. I should do this. I should go over here. You're the worst quarterback in your division. I am not surprised by the way that he's playing, because even if you weren't putting up those interception numbers or so many passing attempts, you're not better than Herbert or Mahomes, not even better than Carr with Devontae Adams. So with that being the case, I think the Broncos have the worst situation outside of the New Orleans Saints in terms of not just quarterback, but financial situation. So I think it was Dennis Allen, the current head coach for the Saints. At least they can move some pieces around. Winston's probably not going to be there. They could go after C.J. Stroud. They could have to go after a couple other guys in the draft. But, man, this is just so weird. Like, what is going on? You're supposed to be the leader of this team, and you're more focused on doing commercials. Like, think about this. And Shannon Sharp said this before we continue on to talk about the show. Punt Off episode 9. Check out the rest of the podcast. Is this: if he was winning, it wouldn't have mattered. Winning cures nearly everything. Tom Brady breaking tablets. They're not winning. You go to the Packers, despite Aaron Rodgers throwing his receivers under the bus. Unacceptable, because you got to take responsibility. But they're losing. But if they were winning games, it wouldn't have necessarily mattered. You wouldn't have criticized it as much because you're winning. With what happened with early on with us, I think it was a certain quarterback. I don't remember who. But if they were winning, it cures everything. It cures your other imperfections. JT Barrett in college, until obviously what happened in the NFL, winning was curing things. But they're not winning games. So honestly, man, it's so bad. Like this is literally what I see every time I see a Russell Wilson commercial.
No.
Because I do
You,
not
yeah,
want to see another Russell Wilson commercial. Like I don't get it.
you won't.
You're winning. I don't care. I just don't understand like what's going on. Clearly, for what I'm seeing at least, it's more about him being a celebrity than it is about putting the work in to play football. At least with Tom
You
Brady,
think
he's made his actions clear. He wants to put in the work to play football. Regardless if it wins or losses, he's setting the message clear. Russell Wilson's sitting at the is playing what do you call it? What was that? Not that story. You're the boy who cried wolf. You want to play quarterback, but you care more about being a celebrity. Like what? How does that make sense?
John, you think Tim Patrick really made that much of a difference? Remember, he got hurt on the first day of training camp. Do you think he made? Do you think they miss him that much on the offense that they're struggling this bad, or is it Javonte Williams getting hurt, Melvin Gordon fumbling? Is it just a plethora of things, or do you think with Tim Patrick all this would be better for them?
It wouldn't have made a difference because it's Russell Wilson's decision making as a quarterback. You can have all
Yeah.
the weapons, like you said, with Matt Ryan or Brady or Breeze or
Oh.
some of these other teams. Goff. You had the weapons in LA. Wilson still has the weapons. It's not like Tim Patrick is putting Pro Bowl numbers. He's never had a 1,000-yard season. He's been obviously with Denver. His best year was in 2020 with 742 yards and 6 touchdowns. Okay, fine. But not being consistent, not necessarily a great player at all. So I don't understand. Like, I get different facets like Curtis Samuel with Washington or was with Carolina with different facets of an offense, like Noah Brown is, or potentially with Tony Pollard. But it won't matter. You could put Mike Evans. You could put Chris Godwin. You could put Leif Fitzgerald in his prime. You could put Megatron in their prime. You could put DJ Moore. You could put another DeAndre Hopkins. It won't matter because your decisions clearly show in the first game you don't trust your quarterback. And instead, you want a kicker who is not a Justin Tucker, is not a Robbie Gold, there's not these other kickers in the National Football League. You're just a kicker. You're McManus. You're not great. You're like almost like the Kirk Cousins of kickers. Not bad. Get the job done sometimes, but not all the time. But again, man, I don't think Tim Patrick would have made much of a difference because look at Russell Wilson's decision making. He's underthrowing receivers. His throwing motion is terrible. He usually his mobility, his bread and butter was in Seattle. Was once he's been able to make plays out of nothing, getting out of the pocket with his legs and throwing the ball downfield. He's not doing neither of those things. Like looking at Russell Wilson and his rushing numbers. They are nothing to be like, oh my goodness, oh my gosh. Like we're looking at it right now. Russell Wilson's rushing numbers. I mean, think about it. He's also only completed 58% of his passes. So Tim Patrick maybe could equivalent to 3 or more to maybe 61, 62 completion percentage. But so far his rushing yards, the highest he had was 23 yards in week 6.
Wow. So
if you're going to be that case with Melvin Gordon fumbling the football more, it's like his hands are made of melted butter. You might as well call Buzzworth or Aunt Annie's, where your hands are like for pancakes. They're butter. They're smooth. You're not getting the job done. With Javonte Williams out, I still think Russell Wilson was never that guy in his career to put this team on his back to take him deep into the playoffs. You can say whatever you want about Eli or certain other guys, but come playoff time, they were going to play really well with their team. Russell Wilson is not that guy.
Yeah.
He was never considered top 10 in his position at any point in time.
It seems like half of the football league here, there's shambles, there's chaos within the organization or decision making, whatever it is. That being said, the games coming up this week, Kansas City and the Chargers have the 2 byes. Now we go into week 8 here. Now, I know we just talked about Denver. Jacksonville, the home team in this game in London. I'm not gonna wake up for it, but I don't
I'm
even
getting
want.
up for it. I'm watching it.
I don't even want to watch the highlights, honestly.
It's like
But who do
SNL.
you?
It's like SNL,
Oh,
James. It's just a comedy sketch. It's not real. Didn't happen. Doesn't count.
yeah. I'm gonna pick Jacksonville. I think you are too. But the thing about it, though, they also are going through a lot of stuff. Trevor Lawrence isn't as good. He did put up numbers against the Giants. Christian Kirk tried to score against the Giants, but the Giants held him out for the victory for New York. He did put up good numbers, yards wise, but without Robinson, Etienne is going to have to do everything rushing wise. I think that gives a little slight advantage to Denver's defense, but they're going to have to play a perfect game defensively. The rumors are out there, trade rumors for Denver as well. Bradley Chubb could get moved. You never know. But for this game's sake, I think we'll both go Jacksonville. Excuse me, and we might have a field goal game, in my opinion. Who do you think will win, Jacksonville or Denver?
Oh, boy, it's going to be Jacksonville. I think you look at the first couple of weeks, Trevor Lawrence had the first 3 weeks, 6 touchdowns, 1 pick. So I think obviously it was kind of way up and down the last couple of weeks. But like I say, it's going to have to be that. But mind you, I heard some rumors about potentially Josh Allen getting traded from Jacksonville. So if somehow that ever goes to fruition and they get a lot of picks, this could be different. Not just for this game, but moving forward. I'll be watching the game because it's football, and obviously I'll be caffeined up. So that's another thing there. He still has 9 touchdowns on the season. That's only 2 less touchdowns than Geno Smith. He only has one more pick than Geno Smith. He has as many, if not as many, passing yards as Geno Smith. It's like I said, not translating to wins and losses. The last 2 weeks, 475 passing yards with 1 touchdown, no pick. So clearly, it's about extending offensive drives. It's about running the football. Now that you don't have a James Robinson who's averaged over 900 yards a season, you don't have a Breece Hall or Michael Carter type of player. You're going to have to rely 100% on Travis Etienne. And I just don't know if he is capable of doing that in a National Football League. I think you look at so far what he's doing, I guarantee you he has 400 yards on the season. Now, mind you, the last 2 weeks have been really inflated, his numbers. The last 2 weeks, he has 24 rushes for 190 yards. So I think the Jaguars are going to have to completely – you have to run the ball down their throat in the red zone. Like I said, 2 things. Run the ball in the red zone effectively well and jam the ball down their throat on their corners and on their safeties. Because the thing is, at the end of the day, I would say give me Jaguars 100%. Run the ball. Give Travis Etienne more than 15-plus carries like you do Derrick Henry. Run the ball effectively in the red zone. And Trevor Lawrence is going to have to extend those offensive drives with a Christian Kirk, with obviously no Cordarrelle is in with the Jets. But extending those offensive drives and getting Etienne involved in the passing game. Because mind you, he's a Lamar Jackson in terms of like maybe his mobility. He's good with his legs. He's mobile. Get involved in the screen passes. Getting involved with passes like 5 or 8 yards. That could definitely win the game there. Because I think if you look at Denver, the Broncos this season, I mean, my gosh, their defense. What has your defense been able to do? Their defense can only do so much when your offense is. It's like you're trying to produce certain fruits during the winter times when they're meant to be produced during the summertime. Like this season, though, if preseason is not any indication, I don't know what. But looking at their games so far, okay, the first game, you allow 17 points. The next game, you nearly lose against the Texans. You nearly lose against the Niners. So what we're already seeing early on is nearly losing. You gave up 32 points to your Raiders. You lost against the Colts, who we'll talk about that in just a moment or in a little bit later in the show. You lose against the Chargers. You lose against the Jets. I mean, at some point, the Jets have the 7th worst offense or defense in the National Football League, and they still beat you. 16-9. So if your offense is scoring no more than 9 to 12 points on average per game, your defense can only do so much. This is totally different than you talked about earlier in the show, James, where it's the early 2000s of the you have the Ray Lewis, you had the Trent Dilfer as quarterback, where defense can take care of the game for you because it's a much more physical game. This is more of an offensive NFL than it was a defensive NFL. From 2000, maybe like late 90s to about 2008, 2009, maybe 2010 was a defensive type league. But now you have guys like a Josh Allen, Mahomes, at least when Wilson got drafted, and Drew Brees when he won that Super Bowl Saints is more of an offensive league. It's more quarterback friendly. But when your quarterback is so friendly to the point where they're not winning games, if you can't beat the Colts, if you nearly lose against the Texans, and if you can't beat your divisional opponents and lose against the Jets, you could have a top 5 pick at the end of the season. So I definitely think it's going to be really, really, really tough for Denver. But I picked Jacksonville. They beat the Chargers 38-10. You can see injuries or whatnot. Jaguars are inexperienced. At least for the Jaguars, this in culture, is Jacksonville over Denver. Even though it's not completely in wins and losses and resulting in a lot of wins for the Jaguars, Doug Preston has a more positive culture. He's at least shown that he trusts his quarterback. Now, is that going to result in them going 8, 9, 9, and 8? I doubt it. But you're showing it. Mind you, they went 1-15 and 1-16 last year. So clearly, anything about 3 to 4 plus games, his job is safe for 2023. Denver's going to lose another game. I believe the Broncos. Let me see the record right here because
they're both 2 and 5. They're both.
So they go 2-6. You're a couple weeks away from missing the playoffs. Chiefs are 5-2. Chargers win this weekend. They're 4-3. Raiders win this weekend. They're 3-4. So you go with the Broncos. You're going to be 3-6. Like, how is that? Or sorry, 2-6. I'm sorry, 2-6. Like, there's still a chance for every team outside of the Broncos to be in the playoffs, to contend for that division. Now, Chiefs are winning it. That's not a debate. But obviously, I picked the Chargers by 1 game. But yeah, it's still up for grabs. But at the end of the day, Chiefs are a much, much better team. I mean, Denver's screwed. If you can't beat, let's look at their schedule before I get back to you. If you can't beat easy teams like the Jets, the Colts, Texans, potentially the Niners, then how are you going to beat Tennessee or the Raiders again or the Panthers who beat Tom Brady or the Ravens or the Chiefs? You're not beating Arizona. You're not beating the Chiefs. You're not beating the Rams. You're not beating the Chiefs again or the Chargers. You could be a 3-14, 4-13 type of team. And Russell Wilson's legacy is still on the line and has been on the line for a very long time. Because, like I say, he's never been considered a top 10 quarterback in the National Football League. Like a Mahomes, Brady, or any of these other guys. He's never been top 10. He's never been the guy that we've talked about more. He's never won a Super Bowl or contended deep in the playoffs without the Legion of Boom. You don't have the Legion of Boom to save you. So at some point, I really think that he needs to be like that movie. There's no place like home. Let's just go back to Seattle, don't play football, and just go from there. But honestly, man, Denver loses, Jacksonville wins. I think they get their 3rd or 4th win on the year. But, I mean, Doug Peterson over Nathaniel Hackett, he has a better experience, better culture. Travis Etienne is on pace to have a Pro Bowl season.
Oh, yeah. The next game, Minnesota 5-1, coming off their bye, is hosting the Arizona Cardinals. They're 3-4. Arizona, of course, have had some time off themselves. They played on Thursday Night Football last week. They got 2 picks from Andy Dalton in a row to give them essentially the win. Kyler Murray, he looked okay, but he had that thing with Cliff Kingsbury about play control and calling a timeout and all that. We went through all that anyway. But for them to get Hopkins back and to bring in Robbie Anderson, things are starting to develop sort of for the Cardinals. But it could all go down the hill Sunday against the Vikings because the Vikings seem like they have it all together. Cousins is throwing well to Jefferson. The defense is forcing turnovers. I think that continues. The Vikings at home, they seem pretty tough to beat. So I'm gonna go with Minnesota over Arizona. What do you think about that game?
100% it's going to be Minnesota because Arizona is averaging barely 22 points a game. And with how great of a receiver Justin Jefferson is with a veteran like play, and obviously Adam Thielen, Alex Max in the backfield with the starter and Dalvin Cook, they're not only going to run the ball better, they're going to pass the ball better than Arizona because you look at their offense, you're averaging you only have 156 points on the season so far, only 1,500 passing yards. So if you really look at just some of their basic offensive numbers so far, you're averaging only 221 passing yards a game. And that's going to translate to an offense who is not only 5-1, is completely destroying that division. I mean, my guy, if I'm looking at the Minnesota Vikings so far in terms of their offense, let's look at it. They're a much better team. So I don't get Kirk Cousins the experience. Like, do we trust Kyler Murray? If last year's playoff game against the Rams wasn't a perfect example, that Kyler Murray is not an elite quarterback right now, at least for right now, you're not beating Minnesota. Look what they did against Green Bay. Look what they've done this season. A bye week, you come up from a lot of rest. You do really well. Remember, Chicago had a mini bye week with 11 days off, and look how they did against the Patriots. So they're going to run the ball really well. They have to convert on 3rd and long. If they're under 56% on 3rd down, they will not win this game. But I pick Minnesota. I just don't trust Arizona. You can say all the weapons, injuries, history or not, but you have past experience to what you're looking at right now. And do you really trust Kyler Murray to bring this team season back? Geno Smith is playing better football than you in multiple different categories. If Geno Smith is the best quarterback in your division, you really think you have a chance? No, I think they score under 21 points. If you're only averaging 22 points a game and your defense is not consistent, especially with trading away, and Isaiah Simmons just hasn't necessarily completely panned out from his 3rd season in the league, coming after Kyler Murray's rookie year in 2019, I believe. He's just not that guy. I'm sorry, but you're not that guy, pal. You're not that guy. And I just don't see how Arizona's going to come back. Not just from our lose record for this game, but for the playoffs. By
the way, John, you know a video game comes out today?
Call it dog. You are so smart. I did not think about that. It is October 28th. Kyler Murray is officially off duty in the NFL. It is now in the line of Call of Duty.
I just thought about it. I was like, wait.
That's so smart. How did I not think of that? Good job. Oh, my God. It's
not good. It's not good for the Cardinals.
It's just, I guarantee you, last year, Isaiah Simmons started 17 games, but the numbers haven't really been consistent. He's had 3 picks.
He didn't play much. Yeah.
He played 17 games last year, but he missed 9 games his rookie year in 2020. Sorry, Kyler Murray's second year in the National Football League. So I think this team is halfway towards trying to contend, but not fully rebuilding the team in terms of their offensive line, their defensive line. Patrick Peterson went to the Vikings for about a season or two, and now he's pretty much gone from the league faster than, obviously, Russell Wilson's chances from winning a Super Bowl without the Legion of Boom. But Arizona's going to lose. They're going to continue to struggle. And like I said, the Cardinals didn't have to pay Kyler Murray in the first place. You still had him under, 1920? You still had him under his 4th year of his deal. Then you can pick up his 5th-year option. Then if it doesn't work out, you're not out a lot. And if it did work out, happy player, happy organization. But instead, you settle, like they say in the DARE program, don't give in to peer pressure. But what do the Cardinals do? They give in to Kyler Murray and his agent's peer pressure. Mind you, back in February, James, his agent put out a whole rant on Twitter. Things, regardless of calling out players on or off the field, have to be kept in house. And this is kept in house as much as that Draymond Green punch that Jordan Poole was.
Oh God.
But if you want to win the game, do Russell
Oh,
Wilson.
man.
Do the high knee. Do the high knee. Let's win the game. Do the high knee.
Okay, we go from that to a first place battle in the NFC South. The Carolina Panthers take on the Falcons in Atlanta. I cannot believe I'm saying that. Carolina coming off of a win where PJ Tucker looked awesome against the Tampa Bay Bucks.
Sorry, PJ.
The Falcons did. PJ Walker, duh. The Falcons lost to the Bengals. They look like themselves. Because Tampa Bay lost. This is what Atlanta's division to lead if they win, which I thought I would never ever say. I don't know what to think of this. I'm gonna pick Atlanta. Maybe their defense makes some plays like they did against San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I can see. The way that they're winning. Mariota is going to have to run like he did against the 49ers, being back at home there. It's going to be interesting to see if Carolina can do some things, whatever made it effective. If they could beat the Bucks, then maybe they could beat the Falcons. But something tells me I'm going to go with the Falcons. What do you think?
I'm picking. Yeah, screw it, man. I'm picking the Panthers. I think obviously we know where they're going. It's rebuild. They're not going to have a winning record at the end of the season. But you beat Brady. That pass he threw into the end zone to I believe it was DJ Moore, one of the tight ends. Very tight window. Threw it, played really well. You could say, oh, it's just the XFL. To which his own. But when 8-0 had the most, like, he was the XFL MVP, if you call it, before the COVID started in 2020. But I think with his mobility, he is more mobile and quicker with his legs than Marcus Mariota is. Marcus Mariota is like that little sloth thing in Monsters Inc. He's getting there, but it'll take a couple years to get there. He's just not a fast quarterback. He's not going to wide with his arm. He's not going to do anything crazy. His best game, really, was his first game of his career in 2015 with 222 yards. I think he had 4 touchdowns, like a rookie record or something. But I'm picking Panthers. Yes, I know Christian McCaffrey's gone. I know a lot of other guys are gone. DJ Moore is still there. PJ Walker is going to use his mobility with his legs. On second and short, third and mid, you could see some plays with PJ Walker converting it for the first down. And let DJ Moore, I guarantee, could have over 10 plus receptions, bro. Buck 52 and 2 touchdowns. Because now that he's the main receiver, and should have been the main receiver in Carolina for the past couple of years with having 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons, it could be a day. Like I said, I don't think it's going to be a very crazy game like a 45. I think it probably 22-20 or 22-21. I'm like the worst person to score predictions because I think while Carolina's going to win the game with the mobility, that also runs time off the clock, and maybe you could see PJ Walker could probably get most of his passing touchdowns closer to the red zone. But again, I picked the Panthers to win this game 22-21.
16-13, a Young Hoku game-winning field goal for the Falcons. That's what I'm going to hope for. Chicago, coming off that Monday night win, they are facing the Cowboys. They're in Arlington, Texas. Of course, the Cowboys coming off a win against another NFC North opponent in Detroit. It was fun while it lasted, in my opinion, with the Bears. But now you're facing a better team with the Cowboys. And with one less day for rest and preparation, I'm going with the Cowboys in a rout. I think it's going to be probably like 38 to 9 or 10 Dallas. What do you think?
What?
I am.
What? What? That Prescott clearly surely wasn't 100% ready or 100% fully healthy. Y'all had 3 points at halftime against Detroit.
How about
And
them Cowboys?
This is a 4-quarter game. Now, do I trust the Cowboys offense more than Chicago? Obviously. But obviously, Robert Quinn being gone, you lose that veteran piece. And who knows? I'm not saying, obviously, Roquan Smith is going to be traded. But let's say somehow he, in the next week, he could get traded. That could impact his play this weekend. But I'm only picking Chicago. Not only do I hate the Cowboys, I gotta have one hot take a week. I got to this is that's my thing this season. One hot take a week. That was the Jaguars beating the Chargers that week. Then it was the who did I pick? It was another game.
Giants.
Giants won.
You had Giants over somebody.
And they're 6-1 on the season. But I think with Chicago's running game, especially if Ezekiel Elliott is out saying he's hoping to play, that's their bread and butter. Once they run the football, it opens up the play action and opens up Dak Prescott. But if Dak Prescott isn't 100% and or Ezekiel Elliott's not playing, you're not going to see Tony Pollard play like Derrick Henry, get 32 Ks for $148 and 3 touchdowns. So I picked Chicago in a really, really close game. I'm not saying, oh, look what it gets to England or this or that. You can say whatever you want about what's happening with Belichick or who gets to credit with him and Brady. And again, that marriage is more messier than Brady and Gisele's marriage. But I think it's going to be a really close one. I think it's really going to come down to a couple of drives in the fourth quarter. And Dallas Schultz not playing well. CeeDee Lamb, I don't know. It's not like he's going to be he's not better. He's not as good as Justin Jefferson now. Chicago doesn't have the offensive line. In terms of dropbacks and being hit, Justin Fields has been hit consistently this season. So you have to watch out for Michael Parsons because I'm not saying he's Jalen Hurts, he's not. But what the Eagles did against Michael Parsons is, I guess you basically you forced him out. You throw the ball, boom. Because a lot of times what Michael Parsons is going to try and do, he's going to force you up the middle. He's going to force you to the left or to the right. But if you can get out of that pocket and look for a Mooney or a Herbert, if they can't stop Herbert, I mean, it's going to be a close game regardless. It's not going to be John Stanton 35-20. No, Chicago's not scoring 35 points against that Dallas defense. And I don't like the Cowboys whatsoever. But I picked Chicago in the close game because that's going to have to be my hot take of the week.
The next game is kind of personal not for me. Well, it's personal for me. The Raiders are at the Saints. Dennis Allen, of course, is the first-year head coach for the Saints. He was a former Raider head coach in Oakland. Didn't know what the hell he was doing. And they abruptly fired him. I heard, and I don't know if it's true, but Alvin Kamara said they're going to win that game for Coach Allen. I don't know how much truth is in that, but that kind of scares me. But Kamara kind of scares me anyway. He's such a threat.
The only thing he should be caring about winning is that court case in November.
That 60 days is almost up. He's really good though, and you have Chris Olave. That defense isn't as good as it used to be. That's the difference. They've given up 200 points. That's the most in the NFL. Detroit is right there, 6 less. That kind of gives me encouragement. Devontae Adams should have a great day. You find Renfro in there. I don't think Waller is still going to play with his hamstring injury. To me, and I heard this a lot, I don't know if it's true, but it seems like Waller, he got his contract, he got his bag. He's not wanting to play as much. I don't know how much of that is true, but I'm always wary of that. Derek Carr should have a good day passing. Josh Jacobs should have a good day of running. We'll see what happens, but I will go with the Raiders. The main thing, though, they have to collapse on Kamara. They've got to get to who's ever starting for the Saints. Winston, I don't think he's ready yet. We'll see, but Taysom Hill is always someone you have to look out for. I'm going to go with the Raiders over the Saints. What do you think?
I'm picking the Raiders, but mind you, though, James Winston is actually fully healthy. this week, but they're still going with Andy Dalton.
Oh, and
That's
Taysom Hill, I don't know if he's available.
I mean, we got to be honest. He's not a quarterback. But I just think with the Saints, they're in the worst situation, and that's not only are you in cap hill. Who knows if Dennis Allen's going to be there next couple of years? Alvin Kamara in November with whatever that situation happened that came about. Who knows if that is going to go well in his favor? And that could be one of the reasons why one of the many reasons why they are going and will miss the playoffs. Andy Dalton threw 2 back-to-back pick sixes against the Cardinals, where you literally had Cliff Kingsbury at one point was being told by his quarterback, calm the flip down. And they destroyed you and won the game. If that face last week against this Alford or one of those defenders that just jumped into the end zone in slow motion was absolutely hilarious. But if you do that against Arizona's defense, we already know Andy Dalton's not a starter in this league. He was never great. He was never top 15 in his position. All he was a poor man's Kirk Cousins with no success. I'm sorry, that's just what he is. And that face last week should show you this week, why are you not starting Jameis Winston? How does that make sense? If he's fully healthy and has a better arm, he gives you a better chance than Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton's never had a great arm in his career. Jameis Winston has a really good arm. Now, that has cost him a lot of games, the reason why he could be down as a starter in the league, but he has a good arm. Now, decision-making with the arm is another thing, which is why they need to call Flo for Progressive and take an insurance policy out on that, because that could cost them gains. Even if it was Winston playing, it wouldn't matter. I'm picking the Raiders, man. I think Devontae Adams is going to have another big game. And I think later this game, the next couple of weeks, you're going to see that pick up. Josh Jacobs is going to play well. And you can see them turn this thing around, unlike with the different
I hope.
But it's the Saints, man. Like, I know you say take each game seriously. I get it. It's the NFL. Your team. You made the team. But the fact is, Andy Dalton threw 2 pick sixes last week. If any 2% indication of last week, the Saints literally have no chance. The only thing they're going to be marching in is the Hamptons after this week.
Okay, so a game of opposites here. Miami at Detroit. Miami coming off a solid win. They got the job done defensively. The offense was kind of non-existent in the second half of that Steelers game on Sunday night. Detroit looked terrible. I see Miami totally destroying Detroit, and I hear the boo birds in Detroit. I see the paper bags back on people's heads in Detroit.
You should have never left Detroit in the first place.
Yeah. So I'm not even going to take long with this. I think Miami destroys Detroit in this game. What do you think?
I don't think Miami wins. Like,
wow.
Here's the thing. And obviously, this prediction I'm highly questionable, but I'm going to stick with it because I already said it. If we go back to that Sunday Night Football matchup, very disappointing game. In the first half, Tua looked phenomenal. But in the second half, you scored, I believe, was it 0 points?
Nobody scored at all.
Nobody scored in the second half. If you can't do that against a team who has been exposed without T.J. Watt, they were first in sacks, first in getting to the quarterback, and it's the exact opposite since T.J. Watt is probably going to miss the rest of the season. How are you going to beat Detroit? Steelers defense is not good whatsoever. Literally, towards the end of the game, Kenny Pickett was this close going on a 2-minute drive to win the game. And that was that Miami defense. Your team couldn't score any points in the second half. Despite Kenny Pickett throwing 3 picks, he nearly won the game. Only had 261 yards and a touchdown. Yeah, I know Detroit's defense is one of the worst in the league. But I think Miami's offense is just not only recouping continuously from Tua in that concussion, I just don't see Tua as really anything special. Like, Mostert and Evans are really good guys, where they're just to cover to add additional yards to the offensive total at the end of the game. They're not a guy like a Derrick Henry or other guys where they're going to put the game on their back and Tua's going to throw for 300 plus yards or two of this, two of that. Tua's really not that great. Besides that game, obviously against the Raiders, they play really, really well. I just don't think if you're only scoring 60 points against the Steelers defense, who can't effectively get to the quarterback, and even though you were hit a couple of times, I don't see how that's going to translate into annihilating Detroit. If you can't expose the Steelers' passing attack, which is bad, not as bad as Detroit, how are you going to beat the Lions? No, do I think Jared Goff is going to have 3? No. We know he's 2 touchdown, 1 pick type of quarterback. He's always been that way in the NFL and always will be. I mean, what did the Dolphins bring to the table? Their defense was terrible last week. I mean, their defense was there, but their offense was non-existent in the second half. I just don't see if your offense is not consistent against the Steelers' passing attack, how are you going to do it against the Jets, which is worse than theirs, yes. But it's the Dolphins offense in the second half showed me nothing of confidence to show how they could annihilate Detroit.
I think Goff is going to throw for 2 touchdowns, but 3 picks. That's what I'll think.
I think Jared Goff, this is a prediction. I think 28 of 42, 325 yards, 2 touchdowns. But like always, 1 pick. Detroit wins.
Yeah. We'll see. I hope it's a good game.
It's a 2-for-1 special for me on hot takes. Don't worry.
Mm-hmm. Wouldn't it be amazing and add to the chaos of this season if you got those right? AFC East matchup. You got the Patriots at the Jets in New Jersey. Of course, Patriots looked bad. The Jets did enough to win. They do lose Vera Tucker, the offensive lineman. They do lose Breece Hall, who was awesome, their best player offensively. They get James Robinson from a trade. We talked about that. We don't know who's going to start for the Patriots. It might not matter anyway. Maybe it will, but Zappy probably will be the starter going forward here until Jones is fully ready. He didn't look ready, but the fact that they pulled him like that, I didn't like that at all. The fact that they even started him was probably a bad decision by the Patriots. The Jets are just trying to look better, and definitely they're going to miss Hall. It's going to make this game even closer. But Patrick Judon should have a great game for the Patriots up front. This guy, he deflects so many passes at the line. He is so awesome with that. With all that being said, though, I think the running game will still be there for the Jets. The home crowd should be hyper for, winning Jets football for once. So I'm gonna go with the Jets. I think they have enough to do it, but they gotta win ugly, and that's the only way that they're gonna do it. So I'm gonna go with New York. What do you think?
Yeah, I'll go with New York too, because again, Blaze Zappi didn't know Mac Jones was going to start on the field until the game started. So most likely, it's like Zappi had a lot of Mac and Zappi rotated getting first team reps every day during the week before the Chicago game. So Bill Belichick still has no idea who his starting quarterback is. 15th overall in the 2021 NFL draft, and you still don't know. I thought, okay, that could be here too. I think Matt Jones would have been better in a Kyle Shanahan type of system because that's the type of quarterback that he likes. That being said, it's Bama quarterbacks. I'm picking, obviously, Jets to win this game. Obviously, Breece Hall was a huge thing. And they remind me of the Titans just a little bit where they rely on the running game to win them games. Quarterback doesn't necessarily have to do a whole lot. Just don't play it like a Jimmy Garoppolo or Nathan Peterman type game. But they run the ball really well. They get a lot of yards and let the running back do their thing. But eventually it's going to blow up in their face. And obviously it did. You trade for James Robinson. But I definitely see the Jets winning this game. Because at least, even though Zach Wilson, I don't believe is a good quarterback. He's not even serviceable. At least they know who's going to be the starting quarterback for this game. Bill Belichick literally, after if you're going to be switching reps between quarterbacks the whole week, why the fuck did you bench Mac like that? Like many people say, and this is a saying that will get old, but it doesn't matter to me. If you have two quarterbacks, you have none whatsoever. The Patriots But the Patriots had two quarterbacks, and they sticked with one because they knew who their quarterback was. It's like maybe I'm wrong, but it's like almost Belichick was thinking maybe in the back of his mind that, oh my gosh, here's another great story. A late round pick, he's going to be my guy. And this is why we don't need to overreact at backups when they play really well for 2 to 3 games. Do you know how many times we saw that where I think there was a backup of Buffalo back in the day where he came in to substitute for a guy like back in the 80s or 90s during the Jim Kelly era. Played really, really well.
Frank Wright.
That's right. It was Frank Wright. Okay. So he played really well. But again, as a serviceable guy to get the job done while the starter is out, games like a Mitchell Trubisky beating a Tom Brady or a P.J. Walker, who maybe probably be the guy for the rest of the season, but for that game, he was a backup, beat Tom Brady. So the narrative that just because a small sample size does not determine the whole product. But Patriots are losing this game.
John,
what's that?
Really quick, what is your take on people saying the Jets should start Joe Flacco over Zach Wilson?
Honestly, I don't mind it because because it's not like Zach Wilson is doing anything. He's just there on the field. You need him to not have a Jimmy McGraw. You need him. Not only is he a second overall pick, you need him to have over 250 passing yards, 300 passing yards a game with 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. And he's not even doing that. He's not throwing the ball. He's not wowing you with his arm. Even put Elijah Moore in the slot. You got James Robinson. I got to be careful with his finger. For some reason, this other finger wants to go down, so it looks like I'm flipping you off, but I'm not. Even with those guys, he's not getting a lot of yards. He's not passing the ball. So I don't think I know it's just like give it 1 game, 1 test. I don't see a complete issue with it because I don't think Zach Wilson's doing much better than Joe Flacco. I mean, continue to look at his numbers. Even last year, you could say whatever you want about talent around him or first year in the National Football League, but this guy is a bona fide scrub. He can't play. I've seen this enough talking about Kawhi Brown in the early 2000s with the Lakers. 252, a touchdown to pick, 210, 0-0, 110, 0-0. You throw 110. Yes, I get your running back winning the game, but at some point you need to throw the ball down the field. 0 touchdowns, 0 picks. 121 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. And at QBR, week 1, 59, then 99. Then all the way down to 73. They went down an extra point to make it 72.8. This guy is a bona fide scrub. He cannot play football. I'm sorry. This guy is not a quarterback in the National Football League. But now you don't have a choice. So I don't think throwing him in for a game or 2 is not a bad idea.
So we got a Keystone State battle between, I hope I'm right by the way, on that. Pittsburgh at Philadelphia. Philadelphia coming off of a bye, feeling fresh. Pittsburgh coming off a loss, which they could have won, but they're rolling with Kenny Pickett. They're struggling somewhat defensively. Offensively, Najee Harris is not showing anything much. Philadelphia just got a boost, of course, with getting Robert Quinn on the defensive side. Offensively, they feel really fresh, like I mentioned. I think this game has no chance of being anything good for the Steelers. Philadelphia, I'm taking them in a rout over Pittsburgh. I just feel like they're going to swarm Kenny Pickett. It's almost going to be like that Buffalo game where they just blew him out of the water right away. Maybe at first Philadelphia will be a little rusty, and that could be anybody coming off of a bye, you know. But I think they have the talent just to overtake late in the first quarter, and then overtake them, before halftime. I just feel like Pittsburgh is just not that team to do anything well right now, and maybe for the rest of the season. So I'm going Philadelphia in a rout. What do you think?
Philadelphia's winning the game because adding the addition of Robert Quinn on the defense is a mentor where he's been in the playoffs. He knows what to do. Help him in in-game situations on third down, adjusting to what the offense is trying to do. And generally, I just don't see how they're going to win the game. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm staying alive. Sorry, you were doing this to make sure you were breathing.
Oh, that's what I was trying to do. We have an AFC South. I'm not going to say rivalry. Tennessee at Houston in your backyard there. Ryan Tannehill hasn't looked that good. Let's be honest. He doesn't have that many weapons around him anyway.
Ryan Tannehill's a fraud.
Yeah. They tried to end around with, I think, the backup quarterback. I forgot his name,
Malik
but
Willis
it didn't work.
Out of UNC.
Yeah. I think they tried end around on 3rd and 8 with him, and it didn't go so well. It was the most awkward.
I think it was against that Buffalo game they were playing. It was so bad by towards the end of the third quarter that they put Malik Willis in and Brian Tannehill was out.
And that too. But Tennessee did win last week. Houston came off of a loss in Las Vegas, where they looked good for the start, but then lost eventually to the Raiders. If Tennessee loses, that division might be the worst ever. Tennessee, of course, is only a game and a half ahead. A game ahead there of the Colts. They could be the favorites to win the division. Houston, of course, is 1-4-1. They're not looking so hot. Not scored much offensively. They're the worst bottom 5 in offense. Tennessee better win this game, or else no one should be winning the division at all. No one should be hosting a playoff game from that division at all. I'm going Tennessee in hopes that they feed Henry and keep feeding him, get Hillard involved. I'm just hoping they do well, basically. So who do you think in that game, Tennessee at Houston?
If Ryan Tannehill, first of all, the Titans are losing. Like Ryan Tannehill with the Tennessee Titans is what Kawhi Brown was with the Lakers in the early 2000s. He is a fraud. Now, mind you, this may not age well. I just saw a rumor that Vikings potentially leak to a trade of Brandon Cooks to the Vikings. Now, if that's the case, the Vikings could contend for the NFC because Brandon Cooks is a really, really good player. And David Pierce, 4th-round pick, coming out of there and surprising everybody on the year. Obviously, Brandon Cooks has not played well this season. I think when you look at guys like Tannehill, who was never a good quarterback. Dude, you played against Washington and had 1 touchdown. Washington beat the Packers. You go against Buffalo. That's the game. Yeah, it was week 2. I remember I was watching the game. I started watching about the end of the third quarter, and I love football because we know the result of the game. Malik Willis is not that guy. And smart, though, take him out of that. I think the preseason game or one of the games in the regular season because he was running the ball too much, knowing that could be damaging to a guy's NFL career. Michael Shanahan with RG3 in Washington. But Ryan Tannehill is not a starter in a National Football League. If the 2020 playoffs wasn't against the Chiefs, wasn't an indication early on already, then I don't know what is. Ryan Tannehill is a bona fide scrub. He cannot play football. What is it going to take some contention? He had a terrible, terrible year last year. Mind you, even with Derrick Henry being so good as they are, have they been to an AFC Championship game? No. Have they truly contended for a Super Bowl? No. I think this division is wide open because it's the worst division in all of football history. Specifically this year in 2022. I mean, my gosh, Houston is terrible. The Colts are terrible. The Texans are trash. I mean, this whole Jaguars, I think, at least are better than the Texans. And there's a chance in the next few games they could be better than the Titans. Because Ryan Tannehill can not only not throw the football, in the last 2 years so far, again, this is just early on, like almost halfway through 2022. In the last 2 years, anything can change. 27 touchdowns to 17 interceptions. Mind you, it's only week 8, but you're turning over the ball in the last 2 years. In the last 2 years, 2020 and 2021, Ryan Tannehill has 54 touchdowns to 21 interceptions. That's not bad. Okay, fine. You want to go to the previous seasons, 2018, 2019, 39 touchdowns, 15 picks. Okay, you want to go continue further. The 2016, 2017 Miami, 26 touchdowns, 21 interceptions. Like at some point, you gotta acknowledge what he is. Ryan Tannehill and Matt Ryan are the same thing and are in the same boat. Their starting careers are done in the National Football League. Do I believe Malik Willis is the guy? No way, Jose. I don't believe he'll be a starter in this league. But you didn't draft him for no reason. So honestly, I think this whole team, like it's weird, this whole division doesn't have a plan for the quarterback position in 2022. Colts really don't. Texans don't. Jaguars do. Only one team in the division has a long-term answer for their starting quarterback position. And for
I think Lawrence is the only one.
right, that's to say they're the only one. So looking at the division, it's just gonna be rough for them. But I just don't see how you throw for 0 touchdowns if you can't beat Buffalo, a really good team. I mean, let's look at the numbers these past couple of weeks because Ryan Tannehill is 24th in the league in QBR, 21st in touchdowns, and is 25th in passing yards. It's somehow I'm not saying the Texans are any good, but I think Ryan Tannehill is worse than the Texans defense. Look at these past couple of games before we continue on the show. You had no touchdowns in the win against the Colts. You are 28 of 45 in the last 2 games. You barely completed 50% of your passes. You're not only not throwing for a lot of touchdowns, you're not throwing for turnovers, but you're also not throwing a lot of yards. You're losing against Buffalo 41-7, James. You're losing against the Giants 21-20. Well, you do 2 touchdowns, but again, at the end of the day, it won't matter. You beat Las Vegas, but you threw an interception. You won the next week by 7. Wow. You beat Washington by only 4 points, completed 60% of your passes. I don't trust Ryan Tannehill. We should know this by now. I'll put this in the trailer. Ryan Tannehill is done as a starting quarterback in the National Football League.
Yeah. Let's go to a game that many people at the beginning of the year did not think would be a good matchup. You have the New York Giants at the Seattle Seahawks.
Oh, yeah.
What? The Seahawks coming off their win. Giants coming off their win as well. I'm trying to remember who the Seahawks played. I can't remember, but the Chargers. They destroyed them. The Giants surviving in Jacksonville. Geno Smith, you're gonna ride with him as long as he can go. Of course, without DK Metcalf, things get a little trickier. If Kenneth Walker the third can continue to run as well, that can be great. But the Giants defense, they're doing really good this season. Only allowing 130 points, but most of that's through the air. Giants have to win ugly, and they're going to have to run the ball well against a Seahawks defense who's making some strides. Their draft class was highly touted this year, almost like the 2012 one, but not as big. at key positions. They've made great picks. But anyway, about the game, Giants are going to have to win ugly. Seahawks are just going to have to maintain control of the ball and make the Giants defense um, suffer being out there long term during the game. I have to roll with the Giants. I feel like they're on this roll. Brian Dibble, he's changing the culture there. I know we said this before. But if Daniel Jones could continue what he's doing, Saquon Barkley, those are two guys that are so awesome running the ball. Of course, playing for contracts. I wonder how long this Geno Smith resurgence can go. I know it's been a big topic around the league. He'll probably get some interviews saying, "Hey, what's working for you? Why are you so good and the Seahawks so good?" I see like Fox or whomever doing that. Anyway, I'm gonna go with the Giants. I think it's gonna be a real close game. The energy should be there in Seattle, and everybody thought, oh, after week 1, they're gonna just be bad after this. Seahawks right now lead their division 4-3. Giants are 6-1. Nobody had that, of course. I'm gonna go with the Giants slightly in Seattle. What do you think?
Seattle will be 5-3 after this game. I think these are both teams where they don't have their answer at the quarterback position, nor they. I think what was so weird about Geno Smith, it's like he never, in his first 19 years of the league, he never wowed us with his arm whatsoever. He was very average with his arm. Now in Seattle, he's making these crazy throws. I have no doubt he's putting in the work. We just weren't seeing it on the field until 2022. But the Giants, if the Giants are going to win, if they have a better, I picked the Giants to lose. Daniel Jones and his legs are going to be one of the reasons why they win. Because as you see, the past couple of weeks, I'm not saying it's the only reason. No, part of the reason. Because with his legs, he's not only extending drives, he's converting first down after first down after first down with his legs, which frees up Saquon Barkley to rest for a couple of plays and get a couple of passes downfield, enough to get those legs rested and then go down the field. But again, I picked the Giants to lose, but this could be my worst week of prediction so far. So we'll see.
There's a lot of toss-up, though. That's the one thing. Okay, so we got a divisional battle here in the NFC West. Probably like 15 minutes west of me here, where I am right now. At SoFi Stadium, you got the San Francisco 49ers at 3-4, taking on the Rams, who are 3-3. Rams coming off a bye, and they really needed it. They don't have a running game. All they have is a passing game with Stafford, who looks bland. The 49ers. Speaking of bland, their second half against the Chiefs was awful. Their defense got exposed. They let them score, 44? They just totally got embarrassed at home against the Chiefs. But that can happen against anybody. I think they feel embarrassed. They're going to use McCaffrey more in this game. I think that's going to be a big factor. The Rams' defense is going to have to play perfect. But I'm interested to see the Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey, how they affect one another, and where Jimmy G goes with the ball. And that should leave open the receivers and hopefully Kittle. I think the 49ers, though, I think they easily win this game. And it might be more than 14 points, honestly. And if you recall, it's always a 49er home game here in LA whenever they come down here to face the Rams as well. So the crowd will be in their favor. All that being said, yeah, I'm going with the 49ers to beat LA. What do you think?
LA's going to get the win because didn't they have a bye week this past week?
Yeah.
So with the bye week, they're going to be rested. Matthew Stafford has had some time to heal his elbow, heal his shoulder, get up a couple of days of rest, and then practice. Now, obviously, I think we can't neglect the issues of trying to trade Cam Akers, who I'm surprised at this point is not trade. Oh my goodness, James, your audio avatar is horrifying. I can't believe How dare you? How rude. No.
I was making a cough, so I didn't want to do it on air,
No, you're
and
good.
I
I'm
didn't
not.
realize I was still there. I gotta change that after the game.
You definitely. But man, I thought the post-show calls were done. But honestly, I think with the Rams, every time rebuilt, I mean, there's definitely some couple of really good fits where Cam Akers could go. We could talk about that whenever he does get potentially traded. I think with that rest, with that time, I think Cooper Cup's going to have a couple of touchdowns in the red zone. But I mean, I can see the Rams winning this definitely a close one though. I think Stafford's probably have 210 touchdown and a pick, but the running backs get a lot of yards in the third quarter. But I see the Rams winning this game for sure. I know Matthew Stafford. I'm not saying I trust him because of his elbow and everything else, but they've had more time to rest and to heal than the Niners did, especially with that pathetic performance against the Chiefs. Morale's going to be low. You don't know what's going to happen to Jimmy G after the year. He could be gone. So there's definitely a lot of more mental stuff going on in the heads of the Niners than it is the Los Angeles Rams.
It's a perfect way to go about that. I didn't go that route. Washington, who came off the win, they've won 2 straight. They're now 3-4. Good for last in that tough NFC East, which is weird to say.
Second, yes.
They face a 3-3 Colts team in shambles. Matt Ryan has the separate shoulder, I believe. He will not be starting again this season. Sam Ellinger will be the starter. And they also have Nick Foles, just in case they want to make a run out of things. But the only thing running is Jonathan Taylor right now for the Colts, and he hasn't done so well lately. Washington with Tyler Heineke, I really like him. Heineke, I thought he should have been starting. I'm going to keep saying that forever. They went for the big name for Carson Wentz, and Wentz is on the bench basically now. Instead of Elf on the Shelf, Wentz on the bench.
Because he's playing like a.
Plus, he has the injuries out 5 more weeks. I wouldn't even bring him back, honestly. And I know this was supposed to be his revenge game, but he probably wasn't going to do well anyway. I know he'll probably be in the building. He'll get some booze, whatever the case is. Washington's defense has been slightly better. I'm going to hate this, but I'm going to go with Washington. I think they make the stops. I think Terry McLaurin has a good game. Hopefully they get Antonio Gibson more involved. But I think Tyler Heineke gives them best chance to win in Washington. So I'm feeling crazy right now, but I'm going to go Washington. What do you think?
Honestly, I don't know if it's that far off. What has happened to this offense? Where's Jonathan Taylor? I thought he was the guy. They're not getting. You give him 10 carries. Now, mind you, he played terrible against Tennessee. 20 carries for barely 2 yards a carry. With 42 yards on the day. His best game was against Houston week 1, which you tied. Since then, he has not had a game of 100 yards rushing. He had 161 yards, 31 attempts for a touchdown, with 4 receptions on the day. Since then, he has not had anything over 21 carries or 6 yards since week 2 against Jacksonville. So, and they lost against Jacksonville in week 2. Honestly, I don't know how to say this, but I'm going to be a little bit of a homer on this one, James, because Sam I think he can, and we'll see if he can. I'm only going for the Colts because Sam went to play for the Texas Longhorns. Because at the end of the game, this game's going to be really boring. It's going to be similar to that Chicago Monday Night Football game against Washington, where Chicago lost and scored 7 points, but then destroyed New England. But honestly, I picked them over because Washington. Well, I think about it, they lost They beat Green Bay. But if Rodgers got that pass off, we're talking about a whole different team going 2-4, 2-5. So honestly, who knows? But I'll pick the Colts. I really hope Jonathan Taylor can get this going because the last 2 weeks, man, he's had 30 carries for 100 yards. 30 carries for 100 yards and no touchdowns. Like, that don't make any sense. Guarantee this last week he had 5.8 yards to carry. So I imagine he'll get between 17 to 22, 25 yards, or between 12 to 25 attempts in this game for over 110 yards and a touchdown. But I picked the Colts. So I really think that running game, like you said, I'm not saying, again, Sam Ehlinger is going to be that backup that can play decent for a game or two because they don't have film on them. And then he'll get exposed. And yet again, we're talking about the Colts here where quarterbacks, James, we have talked about this team and this organization that has failed on a rebuild. You've had every other piece. You traded for DeForest Buckner in 2020. Massive trade. I agree with it. You have Darius Leonard, all those guys. And you had Justin Houston. But this stat right here, James, is insane. If I were to tell you, remember, over 3 years ago to the day, Andrew Luck retired. I went up the elevator and told my boss, holy blank, Andrew Luck just retired. Like, literally, I told him, holy crap, Andrew Luck just retired. And then he said it a little too loud. And people were wondering what the noise was. Well, I'm like, well, I mean, it's football. I don't apologize for that. But, mind you, the Colts are a team that's going to have a new head coach in 2023. Could have a new GM also in 2023. That question is, to James, that I'll give to you first, is Matt Ryan done in the NFL? If not, as a starter.
I feel like someone's going to give him another shot. They think that, we just need someone to throw the ball deep. I don't know who that's going to be. Maybe the Giants. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe New Orleans. They're like, hey, maybe we'll get someone who can throw more accurately instead of Winston. But I feel like someone's going to give him one more shot next season. Stupidly, but I think someone will.
He's in the same category as Andy Dalton, folks, where his starting career is done. Unless anything happens this weekend, so far, Matt Ryan leads the NFL with 9 interceptions and has fumbled the ball 11 times. Ball security, mental decisions, he's done. I tried to tell people Matt Ryan is not a great or an elite quarterback. This is I think I showed you this the other day. I was showing this to our coworker. This is absolutely hilarious. Matt Ryan's time as the Colts quarterback lasted 28 weeks and 3 days. 28 to 3. 28 weeks and 3 days. He still can't escape 28 to 3, regardless of where he goes. You can take Matt Ryan out of Atlanta, but you can't take the Atlanta out of Matt Ryan. And looking at these different quarterbacks, James, this is crazy. I'll give you 2 guesses. How many different starting quarterbacks have the Colts had since 2018?
7.
Fair enough. Okay, you hit the nail on the coffin. Okay, 7 different. Again, mind you, folks, that could change with the injury to Sam Ehlinger, and they could go for a guy for a trade. Mind you, because there are guys that could be on the trading block. 2018.
Nick Foles is right there.
I mean, he was actually the backup to start the season. Then he lost the job. So, the only way I see Sam Ehlinger losing the job would be if he has a Nathan Peterman type game. That's the only way I truly see it because the season's already over. I mean, you don't have a quarterback. It's tough. Andrew Luck, 2018, 10-6. Everything looked bright. You lost. Yes, I know you lost against Kansas City in that game in the playoffs, but then obviously they presumed to lose against Brady, and they win another Super Bowl. Obviously against the Los Angeles Rams, 13-3 or 10-3. The next year, Andrew Luck. Oh my goodness, Andrew Luck retires. They go 7-9. Like, oh my goodness, what the heck is going on? Okay. Jacoby Brissett gets injured in that same year in that last game. Brian Hoyer goes 0-1. 2020. I don't know why anyone thought Phillip Rivers and the Colts was going to do anything. Like, I don't. Phillip Rivers is one of the most overrated quarterbacks in the NFL of all time. All he is a bigger Kirk Cousins with little to no playoff experience. He went to one AFC Championship game in January of 2007. That's it. In his entire career. With Antonio Gates and LT, who won the MVP in the early 2000s. The next year, you got 2020 Phillip Rivers. They go 11-5. Looks great. Until come the playoff time. This is where Phillip Rivers turns into the regular season of Eli Manning. Okay, 2021, Carson Wentz. The Colts start off 0-3. They finish the season 9-8, lose against the Jaguars, and miss the playoffs. 2022, Matt Ryan is going to take this team to the playoffs. He's going to have a winning record. He's going to start the whole season. And yet, this is what I have to say.
Thank you, thank you. I'll take my football medal of honor award. I try to tell people Matt Ryan is a fraud. All Matt Ryan is Phillip Rivers with less kids and a Super Bowl experience. I tried to tell y'all.
You can take Matt Ryan out of Atlanta, but you can't take the Atlanta out of Matt Ryan. And the thing is, the Colts, they've never been able to capture at the quarterback position. I mean, my God, yeah, I think it was Champagano. Now you had Frank Wright, who is not a head coach in the National Football League. I'm sorry, but he's been in the league for a couple of seasons. You've had multiple different quarterbacks. It seems like almost every single season since 2018, the Colts are looking for a different quarterback. Mind you, okay, all those crazy things I said, James, Andrew Luck, Jacoby Brissett, Brian Hoyer, Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan, that's 8 different starting quarterbacks. And their record, the Colts, since 2018. Actually, the Colts' record since Andrew Luck's surprise retirement before the 2019 season, they're 40-30. I have never seen a team that put everything around the franchise on offense and defense. I have never seen a team, James, in the National Football League that came this close. You were so close to getting a quarterback every single time and have failed continuously. They need a new GM. The GM needs to be fired, and so is the head coach. Now you go to a rebuild, just like the Texans are rebuilding, the Jaguars are, the whole team, every team. You get a rebuild. You get a rebuild. You get a rebuild. You get a rebuild. And it's just like, it's like the common word is rebuild in the AFC South. And it seems like that nothing is going to change. The Texans suck. Tennessee sucks. Jaguars suck. The whole division sucks. But honestly, man, it's just the Colts. I just can't believe that, James. 40-30, 8 different starting quarterbacks since 2018. Are you kidding me? That less than four and a half seasons, 8 different starting quarterbacks. Like that, if you saw that with another GM or head coach, and again, I don't think they were the only guys since 2018, but for the most part, if you saw other teams, if that was Detroit, if that was Arizona, if that was Seattle, if that was the Chiefs, any other team, I feel like we would be talking about it more and be more scrutinized of that organization, more importantly, of that owner. And it absolutely makes no sense. 8 different starting quarterbacks. Absolutely ridiculous.
Oh yeah. So you talked about Andrew Luck, right? The night he retired.
That was correct.
I was with some friends doing fantasy football. We were doing a draft. And everybody was buckled down, making the picks. They didn't know who I was at first because I just showed up, Because a friend said, "Yeah, come by. We're gonna do the fantasy draft. You're gonna meet everybody." So everybody buckled down like it was a library. It was quiet because I think they were nervous of me or something, right? Anyway, so somebody picks Andrew Luck, like you know, seventh, eighth round, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
3 minutes later, there's a notification talking about Andrew Luck walked off the field and retired. And the guy who picked Andrew Luck was like, "What? I just picked him."
Oh, dude, no!
I don't know how he ended up, but he probably had Matt. No, I had Matt Ryan as a backup. But
So sorry.
every time I hear that moment or see that moment or hear about that moment, I go right back to where I was when it happened.
I'll
And
tell you, I was at work. I'm like, what? What?
Mhm.
I rush immediately upstairs. My boss at the time was a huge football fan. And I go up there and tell him, like, dude, Andrew Luck just retired. We do have a clown in the chat that clearly has no idea what they're talking about, but thank you for tuning in because Luck can't beat Dalton. And okay, the point, I don't blame it. First of all, you have no idea what you're talking about. So peace.
Uh-oh.
But I don't blame him for retiring. Like, I think there's a stir up of, hey, there's some. Like, the problem is there wasn't any rumors going around. That's what made it shock. That's what made it the biggest surprise to me in NFL history of guys' retirement. It was, to me, it was bigger than like a Josh Norman or Vernon Davis retire. Yes, that was like right at halftime, or Antonio Brown retirement.
Vontae Davis
Vontae Davis, yeah, because he used to be with the Dolphins. They traded
at
him
the halftime.
on Hard Knocks, called his grandma, had a couple of Pro Bowl years. You just say it worked out with the same team, Andrew Luck. And obviously he went to a different team right around that time. I just sorry, this guy's a clown. And I'm just like, this is, to me, was the beginning of their downfall.
Yeah.
This is how, when you have a franchise quarterback in your hands and you screw it up, like, you not only destroyed his career, a guy that could have won you a Super Bowl. Mind you, was it 2 games away from the Super Bowl against, we played against the Patriots, Deflategate, all that. We're not going through that. But there's a chance they were 2 games away from the Super Bowl. He was a Super Bowl contending quarterback. Now, obviously, there's risk throwing interceptions. They were 11-5, 11 consistency in winning double-digit games. And honestly, man, it's just, I still can't believe. I really think that changed the AFC South as a whole for many, many years to come. Because imagine if you go into 2022, could we see the Colts have won a Super Bowl or contend for it? I have to believe they would have. I mean, my God, like, look at the Texans. Like, Andrew Luck with those weapons. Andrew Luck at least would have excited guys in free agency because you're going to win games. Nobody else is winning in that division. The Jaguars are an absolute travesty. The Texans are a travesty. Titans are, I'm sorry, nothing. Andrew Luck had a really good arm. Now, do I think they would have won? I could see them maybe winning it. I mean, it's not a couple years before that. They were 2 games away from the Super Bowl. But at the end of the day, I really think that changed a lot in the National Football League. Because to me, that's insane to have Andrew Luck retire. But I can't believe, man, I lost my voice. My boss was telling me to keep it down because I was being a little too loud. I'm like, Andrew Luck just retired. But it's absolutely crazy.
The Sunday night game, I'm definitely going to watch, but I'm not expecting much at all. Green Bay, who came off a loss against Washington, faces Buffalo, who was on a bye. It's in Buffalo, Sunday Night Football. The Packers, by the way, they are underdogs at 10.5. This is a four time that they've been underdogs by 10 points or more, I think, since 1998 or something like that. 99, I want to say. It shows you how much Green Bay, even though they're 3-4, Buffalo's 5-1, how much they've fallen out of sync. Rodgers looks really bad. He's forcing things. He should be just handing off the ball more. That's harder to do though against Buffalo's defense. Buffalo, fresh. They look really good. You got Diggs, you got Davis and Knox. So to me, I don't think this game is going to be anything special. I think Buffalo's going to destroy Green Bay. You're going to see maybe a Jordan Love sighting in the fourth quarter. I think that's how bad it's going to be. I'm going to go with Buffalo in a rout. I wouldn't be surprised if they traded Zach Moss and get a running back that might take him over the top. I'm trying to figure out which one. They could look at Atlanta, Carolina. I don't know. But if they were able to pull off a trade like that,
right,
they would be unstoppable. And you saw them already beat Kansas City before the bye week. Anyway, but that's during the week. I got Buffalo easily beating Green Bay, who's just in shambles, where their defense looked good for the first half against Washington and just totally fell out of sync in the second half and gave that game away, where Rodgers had to force things. I'm going with Buffalo. What do you think about the Sunday night game?
Buffalo. I mean, like the one thing that drives me nuts about certain players in the National Football League is like they all work for Slitterbond because they keep getting it passed. You keep insulting. Oh, they're not getting. What about you? Also, partly not getting the job done, having literally a career high in interceptions in your entire NFL career as a starting NFL quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. How about Aaron Rodgers as you're this starter? You're this franchise guy for the next 5-10 years. Supposedly, you need to take some responsibility and grow the flip up. Aaron Rodgers is holding back the Packers from reaching the full potential. Aaron Rodgers is holding the Packers hostage from any potential they could have had. I'm not saying Jordan Love is the guy whatsoever. But they drafted him for a reason in 2020. If you can't beat Washington, if you can't beat the Jets, how are you going to beat Buffalo, who is in contention for a Super Bowl? Chicago, right? At least for I'm not again on Dallas on Sunday could be a different story, but for right now, today, Friday morning, I hope I think Kyle Murray's on Twitch right now playing Call of Duty. They're a worse team than Chicago. They're a worse team than Minnesota. They're definitely better than Detroit, but that's not necessarily saying a whole lot. So honestly, man, the Packers are going to be 3-5. Aaron Rodgers' first losing season as a starter in a very, very long time. But honestly, man, it's going to be a long year for them.
Was it 2009, 2017? I think were the 2 years Rodgers had losing records.
Well, he had a collarbone.
Because it's rare.
Because he had a collarbone, so he was
right.
out. It was the Anthony Barr sack that led to his collarbone, and then you basically had Brent Huntley, I think, was the backup.
Yeah.
And they're like, can he be the guy for a couple of games? But we know how it went. That's why I think certain backup quarterbacks, Was it
Packer losing seasons? That's what I was meaning. I forgot to say that.
Right. You don't see that very often. But again, the Packers
No, that's why
I'm going to be watching that game because when the Packers lose, Aaron Rodgers is losing 2 potential rings already. You lost more proposal rings. Aaron Rodgers has lost more proposal rings than he's won in his championship games in his entire career. I don't think he's some like evil dude. I'm just saying, as a quarterback in your accomplishments, you're holding this team back, man. You really are.
Who'd you pick, Washington or Indianapolis?
Oh, I picked the Colts.
All right. The Monday night game is the Battle of Ohio. I easily will go with Cincinnati despite Jamar Chase being out, but they just got Tyler Boyd back, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think that'll be good. I want to see. I don't know if Joe Mixon has been involved with the offense as much. Um, but this is your side of things. I think the Browns, they might show up just for a little bit, but I think they get destroyed at home. I don't think it's going to be a good Monday night game. Good for you though. I'm going with the Bengals to close out week 8 here
Yeah.
over the Browns. What do you think?
It's the freaking Bengals. Like, this is the thing is, obviously, I had the worst news as a Bengals fan today. Jamar Chase is expected to miss the next 4 to 6 weeks. But like I think we were talking about with Jay, and I'll talk about a couple other people. The next 4 to 5 games are really manageable for the Chiefs, and mind you, we did beat Kansas City last year towards the end of the season. So if we can get Jamar Chase back towards the end of that 5 game stretch, beat Kansas City, we got the division. With that being said, despite Lamar Jackson playing really good football, honestly, dude, this is a dub. I'm already calling it. Like, look how the Browns played last week. I mean, it's Jacoby Brissett. You take it seriously, because a divisional game is a divisional game. I agree. But with the Bengals, what they did against the Falcons, they could do similar things against the Browns, because you're wasting years of Greedy Williams and Denzel Ward's career with a bunch of bullcrap with Deshaun Watson, Jacoby Brissett, Baker Mayfield. I mean, my gosh, these guys have Hall of Fame potential. At least Denzel Ward does. And you're wasting their years with a team that isn't doing diddly squat. But obviously, I'm going to pick the Bengals to win that game. I understand you also have Tyler Boyd. You also have T. Higgins. Really, really good players. But let's see what happens. But I pick the Bengals to win this game.
Oh yeah, I definitely think that's the case. You know what I got my information from this morning and tonight, John?
What?
I don't know if you know what this is.
The newspaper.
Yeah, it's kind of an artifact when you think nowadays, but
Oh yeah, I don't read them.
yeah, but it's come pretty handy. Anyway, it's been a long, great show. You know, very knowledgeable, of course, very detailed. You always bring that. Um, your picks, you know, are definitely shocking, but it could happen because this is the year of chaos so far, and we're only in week 8. We got 9 more to go, and the playoffs.
It's almost like a certain guy we know is controlling the National Football League. It's a bunch of chaos going everywhere.
Oh God. My final thought. You know, it's been great. It's been a long time coming. I did not know we were gonna do a show. Hopefully Monday, if I'm not doing much. I know family's gonna come over and all that, but hopefully I can get a show in after Monday Night Football, after the Bengals win. We'll see what happens. But yeah, my final thought. Hey, happy to be here with you, John. Happy I could talk again. And it was great to do this show. So thank you for having us here.
That was great, man. Hopefully, my voice is not crazy for Monday Night Football, as we're not able to do a show this past weekend because my voice, folks, was just really. Oh my God, it's James Gonzalez.
I didn't think about it.
I know it wasn't on purpose. It's all good, but honestly, man, it's been a good show. It's been a lot. Been working a lot, so we'll keep you all updated when it needs to be. But again, Matt Ryan, when asked to play quarterback and when being benched.
No.
No. It's been a good show. We will see y'all later. And I know you've been requesting this for a while. to something you've been wanting to see. So I thought I'd present this to you, and we will get to the show.
Broncos country, let's ride.